Good morning, sir.
Hi, morning, Anchal ji. How are you?
All well, sir. All well.
Very nice to see you. Thank you so much
Same
for
here.
joining. Thank you
No,
so
it's
much.
all my pleasure.
नीचे पहनी थी अंदर करके तो फिर आपने बाहर निकाल दिया तो अंदर डाल रहे थे ना नीचे तो अंदर डाल रहे थे ना तो क्या है था आज सभी टी-शर्ट्स में सीरियसली कह रही हूँ ऐसा सैटरडे है ना आज थोड़ा सा वो खुद ही बोलती ठीक है सैटरडे हाँ कुछ दोस्तों ने नाम पे पर्चा फाड़ दो
Hi Aditya, how are you?
Good, ma'am. Good. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good morning, Sanjeev sir.
Good morning Aditya. Beta, how are you?
Good, sir. Good.
तो हमने सोचा आंचल जी के जीएसटी के प्रोग्राम में जो इंट्रोडक्शन है वो भी जीएसटी एक्सपर्ट्स ही होने चाहिए. Ashok Batra ji has also joined. Very good morning, sir.
हाँ संकल जी, I have joined.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good,
Anchal.
good morning, sir. I am well, sir.
Good, good, good. अच्छा, मेरी ना आज एक मीटिंग है स्टाफ के साथ होती है सैटरडे 11 बजे. आई विल जस्ट
ठीक है, sir.
लीव दिस मीटिंग एंड ज्वाइन यू बिफोर 10 मिनट्स बिफोर 12. तो आधा घंटा
Yes, sir.
चलती है
Yes, sir.
meeting, उसके बाद
हाँ.
चाय पी के
बस सर
आपको.
आप इस पे लॉग्ड इन रहना सर. बस आप लॉग्ड इन रह के म्यूट कर दीजिएगा बस.
हाँ हाँ, अभी तो मैं इसको मीटिंग को छोड़ रहा हूँ. आई एम लीविंग दिस मीटिंग राइट नाउ.
नहीं सर, सर आप मीटिंग छोड़ रहे हैं मतलब और यू विल रिमेन इन द मीटिंग बट
वो पॉसिबल नहीं है. 2 मीटिंग कैसे करूंगा मुझे?
अच्छा, ओहो, अच्छा अच्छा,
स्टाफ
ठीक
की
है सर.
मीटिंग
ठीक,
ज्वाइन करते हैं ना. आई हैव
ठीक है
नो
सर.
चॉइस बट आई हैव टू लीव.
ठीक, ठीक है सर. ठीक है सर. थैंक यू वेरी मच. Anchal ji, will you be using a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, sir, I will be.
Okay, so then I'll be making you host. अभी Zoom ने शायद co-host का ऑप्शन अभी हटा दिया है. तो एक बार मेरे को म्यूट के लिए देखना पड़ेगा.
Okay, sir, you just give me the share screen rights. That's all.
नहीं, वो share screen से नहीं होगा. I think I'll have to make you co-host. I'll see if that can be done. Is it possible to only do the share screen right instead of making the host?
Yes, sir. You can share the rights. Just the screen with her.
आदित्य कहाँ से होते हैं शेयर स्क्रीन के राइट्स?
एक बार आंचल मैम, can you just try to share your screen?
Yeah, Aditya, I tried, but it's
7.6% है.
yeah, it is showing that host has disabled the participant screen sharing.
कौन दे रहे हैं? अरे LIC पे कौन जाएगा?
अच्छा अच्छा, ठीक है. आप देखो, अब आ रहा है आपके पास?
I just check it. Yes, sir. Now it is aligned.
Hello, this is good. This is, we are learning new things. So we'll also be starting a 1-week certificate course, Anchal ji, and then Aditya will be contacting you.
Sure, sir, my
This will be
pleasure.
with the Delhi University CA Parivar and Indian Accounting Association, and exam will also be taken after.
Oh,
the
that's
course.
great. That's great.
नमस्कार सर.
नमस्कार सर, कैसे हैं सर?
बस बढ़िया सर, बढ़िया.
मैं एक बार सबको म्यूट करके एंड देन आई विल अनम्यूट सुनील जी, आदित्य जी, आंचल. दैट हेल्प. We'll just wait for 1 or 2 minutes, Aditya and Anchal.
Right.
ये मैं देखी नहीं है यार अभी, ये तो चल देख के करूंगा।
Aditya, I request you to start, and once you are given the introduction, and then I'll give the introduction of what we are trying to do at the CA Parivar series, and then we'll hand it over to Anchal. Over to you, Aditya.
Hello. Yeah. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank CA Sanjeev Singhal ji for taking this initiative, and CA Parivar is now has now started with Ask Your Expert series. Today's topic is related to GST input tax credit and GST annual return 18-19 with the spillover effects of 17-18. तो सर आज की this is basically need need of our for all the professionals, because we all know that September 2020 is the deadline for GST annual return. So before I introduce C. Achal Kapoor ji, I would like to start the session with the golden quote that don't downgrade your dream to match your reality, but upgrade your faith to match your destiny. So to introduce C. Achal Kapoor ji, I think she needs no introduction. We have jointly also deliberated on various platforms, and she has also recorded one of the on Professional Times channel on the GST topic of trans credit. So just to give a brief about her, she is a practicing chartered accountant for the past 10 years in the field of indirect tax, right? She GST is one of her core competency areas, and she has delivered seminars on GST at various platforms across India. And now she is I think she is deliberating on almost all platforms when it comes to webinars. So I would like to congratulate her. And she has also authored many articles on GST, which are published time to time on various journals like AIFTP and Tax Management India, etc. So I welcome Achalji on CA Parivar platform. So over to you, Sanjeev sir.
Thank you very much, Aditya. Another young speaker, and we are really proud of you in the CA Parivar. And for the benefit of all, let me tell you, CA Parivar refers to the family of chartered accountants. which we made 2 years ago. And now CA Parivar is actually CA Parivar Education and Welfare Society, wherein we are grooming the young speakers by putting them together with the experienced speakers. And this is the third program in this series, which is called as Growing Together. This is our worldwide initiative, which we are doing. Apart from India, we are doing in some other countries as well. And we are also inviting authors also to write books and articles on the topics of professional interest. Our book on compendium of qualifications, emphasis of matter, and key audit matter will be released next week in association with Bloomsbury. We'll also be soon opening subscription to our CA Parivar Society, wherein the members will get benefits like maybe discounts on the various books and products of professional interest. The endeavor is the word growing together is coined to grow all the firms, all sizes of firms, small firm, mid firm, and large firms together, where the large firms do the hand holding of the smaller firms and the mid-sized firms in terms of sharing of the knowledge and in terms of sharing the best practices. So this is an attempt in this direction. So we have started this series last month. Today is the third program, and on 13th of this month, the fourth program is with Dr. Girish Ahuja. Now, in the interest of time, I will not take more time, and I would invite our learned speaker, Anchal Kapoor ji. I've heard her many times, and it started with my journey when I was at Amritsar, when my good friend Ashwini Jindal ji has introduced us to Anchal, and she has delivered a wonderful lecture. And then, it's the Panipat, Sonipat, I mean, various branches were there. Then also I saw that Anchal was there. So this is really nice, to see so many budding speakers in GST. So welcome to you, Anchal ji, on our CA platform. And I would request you to kindly take it forward from here. And around 12 o'clock, Ashok Batra ji will be joining us. And then Ashok Batra ji will be speaking from 12 to 1 o'clock. Thank you very much. Thanks for taking out time. Okay, I'll
Yeah, I hope I am audible.
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, I thank you and CA Parivar for giving me this opportunity to interact on this elite platform of CA Parivar. Indeed, a pleasure for me, and sharing platform with Batra sir is indeed a pleasure in itself. And thank you so much, Aditya, for introducing me by a eminent GST expert himself. And thanks a lot for that. Now, without taking much of the time, sir, can I share the PPT, please?
Yeah.
Okay.
This option is there.
Yeah, I got that. I hope the screen is visible.
Yes.
Okay. So GSTR 9 and 9C is itself a topic in it. So without, like, this lecture can run into number of hours, but we'll be restricting it to the time frame given to me. So we will have a quick run through the form, and the main thing that we will be discussing today is the effects of 1718. So that will be the main highlight for the session, and I will be sharing some Excel sheets also with you. So that the formulas are already inbuilt in these Excel sheets. You just have to just have to put on the figures, and the entire data will come automatically without the spillover effects of 1718. So why we refer to these spillover effects of 1718? Because when we filed the returns for 1718, there was no previous year data. So we were very easy comparing. I should not say easy, but at least we didn't have any spillover effects of the previous year. So 1718, we could match the books data with 3B data directly. But when for 18-19 we talk about, we are unable to connect both the years at a first instance. Reason, the figures of 3B of 18-19 also has the effect of figures of 17-18 in itself, because the GSTN क्या हमें ही नहीं पता कि कौन सी ऐसी फिगर्स है 3B की जो हमने 17-18 की इधर डाल दी है. So GST as of now cannot differentiate between कि आपने 18-19 3B की जो फिगर्स डाली हैं क्या वो 18-19 की है या वो 17-18 की है. So when we take the 3B figures, हम उसमें से 17-18 के effect we will reduce and then we will compare it with 18-19 figures, right? Now let's have a look on the PPT. We'll be quickly taking over all these points in a summarized manner. That the turnover limit as of now is 2 crores for GSTR 9, and for 9C it is 5 crores. Means from 2 to 5 crores it is not, you cannot file GSTR 9C, you just have to file GSTR 9. Now next, what about the persons who are having a turnover below 2 crores? For this, let me tell you, those persons who are having a turnover below 2 crores, they are not required to file GSTR 9 as of now. But however, if you feel like that there are certain issues involved in the returns which need to be addressed, so let me tell you, GSTR 9 is the last opportunity to go for it. So if otherwise, what will happen? Whatever is your data in GSTR 3B, GSTR 1, that will be automatically pegged and the return is deemed to have been furnished on the due date. So if you think that there are certain corrections which you need to go through, and secondly, which can create problem in your assessment, so you must file GSTR 9 below 2 crores even as a word of caution. It is just an advice. Now, all your 3Bs and 1s must be filed. This you already know, as you have already done it for 17-18. Even if the GST number is surrendered, you are still required to file GSTR 9 for that number if the limit of 2 crore is exceeded for it. The major data in the annual return is auto-populated. However, if you change the values more than 20%, it gets red hot heated, right? But that is just an indication to you कि आपने जो values है that more than 20% has been altered. Next, you cannot revise GSTR 9. Yes, be careful. Once it is filed, it is filed. And GSTR 9 is to be filed beforehand before uploading 9C. GSTR 9 is to be filed for every GST. That what I am making, why I am making the point, even if, sir, what will happen? Aggregate turnover, we will check for the entire entity pan-wise. But once you cross the aggregate limit, then it is not to be checked individually branch-wise and has to be done for the, has to be filed for each and every branch. Although the turnover there may be 1 lakh rupees or it may be nil even. So GSTR 9 is to be filed for every branch, every GSTR. Please make it a point. Sometimes what happen कि कुछ companies है जिनके head office एक particular place पे, say I say it is in Delhi, the unit is operational in Mumbai, then please don't forget to file it for the head office which is located in Delhi or in Mumbai whatsoever. So in that case you have to be careful. In GSTR 9 and 9C, sir, it is a boundary which is being created for the taxpayers. If you want to take the benefit of any credit, you cannot take. If you want to reduce your liability, you cannot reduce. But the government says tax jahan dena hai, wo to mujhe de hi dijiye. So GSTR 9 में what can happen? You can increase your liability. अगर आपको लगता है किसी चीज पे टैक्स नहीं पे हुआ, you can pay tax on it. Secondly, output ज्यादा ले लिया, उसको आप reverse करके payment कर सकते हैं. Now the issue arises, payment कैसे कर सकते हैं? So payment जो instructions है GSTR 9 form की, that says that has to be paid in cash only. But this is a litigative issue. Why I'm saying it litigated? Because this condition is imposed only and only through the form instructions. Nowhere in the rules or in the act the same has been denied. So if you don't want to go into litigation, then you can go through cash payment and select the option annual return in DRC 03. But in case the credit was available at the time when the liability arose and is still available, then you can, as a matter of litigation, can touch the credit also for the payment. But in that case, you don't have to select the option of annual return, whereas you have to select the option of voluntary payment 73.5, and only then you can pay through cash. But again, saying that please make sure that the credit must have been available at the time when the liability arose. ये ना हो आज क्रेडिट है उस टाइम पे था ही नहीं, आप बोलो फिर भी मैं यूज कर लूंगा. No, this should not be, that will not be will be entertained. Right now, moving ahead, so these are the certain prerequisites जो आई हैव फ्रेम्ड फॉर यू, कि जब हम अपने अकाउंटेंट को या स्टाफ को बोलते हैं कि हम गोइंग टू स्टार्ट विद जीएसटी 9, सो वो सब क्या कलेक्ट करना है, जब हम पिकनिक पे जाते हैं क्या सामान कलेक्ट करना है सो दैट हम लेके जा सके. सो दीज आर द थिंग्स व्हिच यू नीड टू टेक. एंड प्लीज डोंट फॉरगेट, बहुत सारे सर्विस टैक्स के नोटिसेस हम सब ने रिसीव किए हैं owing to third party information which was furnished by tax department. And now you know, as per the new norms also, now it is getting mixed up. They have introduced the tab in the compliances window in income tax also, where the GSTR sale is being shown. So please make sure the incomes as given in 26AS, as in your income tax return, your corporate records and other records must be carefully watched for. Right now, sir, जब हम points तो हमें GST law में सब कुछ पता है, right? But when we sit for doing the audit, we sometimes forget that what all was to be checked. So this is a quick 20 summarized points which I have kept here. So this list would have been run into 25, 30, 50 points. But I have just given you an insight that whenever you give the audit to your staff to get it done or to start with it, then you must be giving them a checklist that what are the points which they must be considering, and these are the basic points which should not be overlooked. When we'll be going through it, you can add all more points to this 20 quick summarized points, which are the legal points. So what are those? Please, P&L, say reconciliation. Quickly, I will be going through it. Reconciliation of income and receipts as per P&L must be done. RCM provisions, including the foreign payments, must be watched for. Expenses, sir, expenses ka credit depends upon two sections, section 16 and section 16, just a minute, section 16 and section 17.5. So make sure that the provisions of section 16, bill hona chahiye, tax means tax invoice hona chahiye, and returns filed honi chahiye, tax payment hui honi chahiye. All those conditions as given in section 16 must be complied for, and those items which form part of 17.5 should not, the credit for those should not have been taken. Sir, 180 days, a big hit. Most of the assessees, most of the taxable person face this problem that the creditors are not being paid in 180 days, right? So you must make a note of it in your return. If the particular provision has not been complied with, means you must qualify your report with this provision. Although without going into litigation, I know that some professionals held that there is an escape route for 180 days also. Reason being the GSTR2 mechanism is not into picture. But to save our skin, we must give a note if the criteria of 180 days as required by section 16 is not met for. If your client has taken refund, please do check that the provisions of section 54 are duly compliant. Sir, in some of the cases, I myself has vouched, the person was not eligible for in the refund of inverted duty structure. Those have been taken. Although your liability for GSTR 9 is 9C is for the reconciliation, but there are certain prima facie things which we cannot ignore. Although the view has been changed from true and correct to true and fair, but still there are certain things which are clearly visible and can't be ignored. So if the party has taken refund, please make sure that the provisions have been duly complied with. Sir, output rates have been correctly charged, because time to time there has been various changes in the rates. Reconciliation of GST balances as per portal and closing balance sheet must be done. Sir, it gives you an insight. because officer is also going to check from here आपका balance sheet में balance क्या है और आपका portal पे balance क्या है. So you can go into, then you can check if there is a difference, whether it is on account of inputs or whether it is on account of outputs. Now, furthermore, the outward supplies which are claimed as exports, please make sure that the provisions of the sections have duly been complied with, whether those actually qualify as exports or not. The valuation provisions, whatever charges, like हमने जब अपने CA के bill raise किए, we got certain reimbursements from banks. So whether such sort of reimbursements, the transit insurance, the freight, the expenses of the receipt, the obligation of the recipient, which is being met by the supplier. For example, in case of construction contract, if I say that iron and steel was provided by the supplier, whereas it was the part of the contract and that amount was deducted from the contract. So in that case, please make it sure that the GST is to be levied on the entire value of the contract, and the whatever obligation of the recipient is met by the supplier, even that is to be added for the purpose of valuation. Sir, सबसे अच्छा तरीका है GST को handle करने का is to go through the documentation. It is for every type of audit, but here also there are various types of invoices, tax documents, tax invoices, debit credit notes, self invoices. Sir, as I've said, debit credit notes, please make sure, बहुत सारी गलती मिलेगी आपको कि the debit or credit note must be issued by the person who is supplying the goods or service. Right? So the debit or credit notes cannot be issued by the other party as per GST. So please make sure the number of cases you will find where these have been wrongly issued. Payment invoices, vouchers, the refund vouchers, whether as per the relevant provisions those have been issued or not. Sir, RCM ke case mein self-generated invoices, in most of the cases you will find during the audit that those have not been generated, and a qualification for the same must be mentioned. Don't forget to add Schedule 1 supplies. When I will be discussing aggregate turnover, will surely come to Schedule 1 and sale of fixed assets. So 2A reconciliation. For 1819, I can say that 2A was not a base document, because the rule of even the rule 36.4, without going into its validity, it came in 2019. But however, sir, whenever I do the audit, I always check and reconcile 2A bill to bill and party to party wise. Reason, it gives you an insight that what the client has done. सर वो इनवॉइसेस जो आपके हैं, आपके पास इनवॉइस अवेलेबल है, सामने वाले ने नहीं अपलोड किए, फिर भी समझ आता है कि वो रह गए. But those bills are almost to be taken as per caution, where the other party has entered the bill, but that is not shown in your GSTR, your books of accounts or in your GST returns. So कल को डिपार्टमेंट आपसे पूछ सकता है, why you have not booked this purchase? So how I do it, I divide it into 3 parts: bills which are there on the portal, not in my books, not in the books, not in the portal, and thirdly, differentiated amounts. So all those must be at least be brought to the notice of the party, and you must take into consideration while forming your opinion. Now, sale of fixed assets, as I already told you, yes, interest liability. Sir, wherever there is a late fee, please do check whether the interest has been paid on it. Abhi, I am just talking about the interest, whether on the gross or on the net. Sir, government ने promise तो बहुत किए कि हम इसको gross से net पे ले जाएंगे, but the notification to the same has not yet been given. So even if you consider it on gross or net as per your professional competence, so or your professional opinion, but please make it sure that the interest liabilities on the same has duly been discharged, and make a note. If your assessee is discharging it on gross or a net, please make it a note in your GSTR 9C that whether the interest liability, wherever applicable, has been discharged or not. Sir, at the end of this, you will also find some drafted suggestions, drafted qualifications, drafted points which we must give in GSTR 9C. Now, GSTR 10, sir, final return has been filed or not. This is also a point to be checked. Cross charge, if there are multiple branches, whether the cross charge has been done or not. The rule 42-43 very important. Sir, बहुत सारे ऐसे businesses है जिनमें exempt supply है. May it be rice sheller, may it be a departmental store, because they also sell certain non-branded atta, etc. So please make sure that the provisions of rule 42-43 have been duly complied with. देखने में tough लगता है, करने में it is not that tough. It is very logically based formulas. और अभी तो इसमें जो anomaly थी वो भी गवर्नमेंट ने through amendment उसको correct किया है. Now, whether the stock records maintained or not. So stock records are required to be maintained under GST regime also. And whenever you are making any opinion on stock records, please make sure the similar comment being referred by the statutory auditor or the tax auditor also. So वो लिख रहा है कि stock records maintain नहीं है and you are not mentioning anything about it, so this should not be done. So these were the 20 quick summarized points. Now I move on to GSTR 9. Sir, GSTR 9 किस केस में फाइल नहीं होनी, those you all know. सिर्फ इसमें एक पॉइंट मैं हाईलाइट करना चाहूंगी, e-commerce operator. Sir, e-commerce operator are of 3 types. Firstly, I will classify them into 2 broad categories. What are those 2 broad categories? One is goods, another is services. Right? Now, when I go to goods, so I will say no option. Sir, वैसे e-commerce operator में अगर आप अपनी साइट बनाते हो, अपना प्रोडक्ट उस पे सेल करते हो, on site, on product, so that will not fall under e-commerce. That will not fall. Now, you have maintained a site and the other person product you are selling, then in that case, you qualify as e-commerce operator being defined in the law also. Now, coming towards it, if it is for goods or services, if it is for goods, then you have to get the mandatory registration. The person who is supplying through e-commerce operator also has to go for the mandatory registration, and it is mandatory registration for the e-commerce operator also. It covers your Flipkart and Amazon. Now, when I come to services, there are 2 types of e-commerce operator, one of 9(5) and others. So, जो 9(5) वाले e-commerce operator है, वो सिर्फ और सिर्फ 3 हैं. Example से चलते हैं, aggregators like Ola, Uber, MMT, hotel booking, and third is your urban club, housekeeping services. तो 9(5) वाले ऑपरेटर के केस में गवर्नमेंट कहती है मुझे छोटे पर्सन से कोई लेना देना नहीं. आई एम नॉट कंसर्न्ड अबाउट द ड्राइवर, आई एम नॉट कंसर्न्ड अबाउट द होटल्स हु आर हैविंग टर्नओवर बिलो 20 lakhs. I am not concerned with the cleaner, urban club. For me, you are the deemed supplier. Ola, Uber, you are the deemed supplier. MMT, you are the deemed supplier. Urban club, you are the deemed supplier. So these are 9(5). Sir, 9(5) वालों में जब मुझे ही deemed supplier मान लिया गया, then the question of TCS does not arise. Whereas Flipkart में भी TCS है, और other than 9(5), all other are 9(5). For example, your this Zomato, Swiggy, these all are other than 9(5). So in this case also TCS is apt. Right? Now, in this case, 9(5) wale operator, where the operator is considered as the deemed supplier, 9 has to be filed. And for other e-commerce operator who are covered by the provisions of TCS, 9B has to be filed. So if you have any e-commerce operator, please do care of this thing. Now, moving ahead. So 9C provision, you know, section 35 and 44 and rule 80 deals with it. Penalty is 100 rupees per day, means double 200 rupees. हमने कई बार 17-18 में pay भी की है. Or in case maximum limit being fixed, which is 0.50% of the turnover in that state. Right? So these are the late fee. Now, taking you through, we have already discussed with this issue that 9 and 9C up to 2 crores, it is both, it is optional and it is not applicable. This slab from 2 to 5, one is mandatory, other not applicable. And when you cross the threshold of 5 CR, both have to be filed. Sir, Aggregate turnover में what I want to bring into your notice, as I already told you, that to check the threshold, you have to do it on pan India wise. You have to do it on pan India wise. Secondly, there are certain supplies which are supplies under GST. May it be Schedule 1 supplies, may it be the sale of capital goods, may it be the other supplies which are not there, branch transfers. So all those must be considered and added. सीधे इनकम टैक्स की टर्नओवर उठा के या कॉर्पोरेट रिकॉर्ड्स की टर्नओवर उठा के आप जीएसटी में टर्नओवर कंसिडर नहीं कर सकते. You must check the, sir, various assessees are there who are on the brink, who are on the threshold. So for them, the aggregate turnover must be clearly checked and vouched for. So there are certain cases where the rule 32 applies. Yani forex dealers. So please make sure that in case of forex dealers or air travel agents, the turnover as per GST has to be calculated. So whenever I refer to turnover, that does not mean your income tax or your other record turnover, whereas as per the provisions of 2 clause 6, right? Moving ahead. So last time हम सब ने GSTR 9 फाइल की है. So ये तो हमने एक बैकग्राउंड प्रिपेयर किया. Moreover, in this case, I will be taking up through GSTR 9 a quick drive through. सर कोरोना है, उतरेंगे नहीं, एक चक्कर लगा के GSTR 9 का आएंगे, so that it gives a fresh memory, a recall in our mind कि what we did. I will not even say last year, we did it just in the February only for 17-18, and now we are going to do it for 18-19, right? So part 1 is just your basic information, nothing to be more specific about it. Part 2 deals with your output. अगर मैं भी एक normal person हूँ तो मैं पहले क्या मांगूंगी? भाई output बता दीजिए, input बता दीजिए, टैक्स की क्या पेमेंट की वो बता दीजिए. तो पहले 3 चीजें तो इसी के साथ डील करती हैं. आपको you have to be with me in this if you really want to go through the concept of GSTR 9 in the proper manner. ये तीनों पार्ट जो डाटा पिक करते हैं, ये सिर्फ और सिर्फ मार्च 19 तक का डाटा पिक करेंगे, यानी 18-19 तक का जो आपने मार्च 19 तक कर दिया, राइट? ये उसके बियॉन्ड नहीं जाएंगे. लेकिन एज पर द प्रोविजंस ऑफ 16(4) you know that you have the chance to make the rectifications up to September 19. यानी अप्रैल 19 से लेकर सितंबर 9 तक आउटपुट, इनपुट, टैक्स पेड तीनों का जो एडजस्टमेंट 18-19 का आपने नेक्स्ट हाफ ईयर में यानी अप्रैल 19 से सितंबर 19 तक करते हैं, दैट फॉर्म्स पार्ट ऑफ पार्ट 5. इसका मतलब अगर मैं ये कहूं मुझे बुक्स के अकॉर्डिंग वैल्यू मैच करनी है, तो मैं कैसे मैच कर पाऊंगी? जो एडजस्टमेंट, जो फिगर्स मैंने 18-19 की मार्च 19 तक दिखा दी वो भी, और जो उसके बाद रिटर्नों में दिखाई अप टू सितंबर 19, पार्ट 5 को भी कंसिडर करके चलना होगा, राइट? अपार्ट फ्रॉम दिस, ये हमारे सर यही 3 पार्ट्स जो है, पार्ट 2, 3 and 4 will be our main parts, and along with part 5. So part 6 जो है that has been made optional, that we will not be discussing today, right? Now, so GSTR 9 में as I already told you, बस 2 मिनट के लिए मेरे साथ देखेंगे पार्ट 4 में क्या आता है. सब लास्ट ईयर भी बहुत सारे लोगों ने फर्निश करने के बाद एनालाइज किया that the wrong information has been furnished. कईयों ने तो ऑटो पॉपुलेटेड डाटा को कंसिडर किया. नो, इट वाज नॉट टू बी डन. सर GSTR 9 ने डाटा वहां से पिक किया जहां से मिला. उनको बाइफिकेशन B2C और B2B में मिली ही कब? उनको बाइफिकेशन मिली in from GSTR 1, so they picked it from GSTR 1, right? Whereas for me 3B, tax paid is the basis. When tax paid is the basis, GSTR 1 मुझे tax paid नहीं बताती. Who tells me tax paid? GSTR 3B. Who tells me it is GSTR 3B? So it says that in case of GSTR 3B, data has to be picked. One thing. Secondly, इन केस अब इसमें आप क्या लोगे, वो डाटा जो मार्च, मैंने आपको पहले बोला था इस केस में मार्च 19 हैज टू बी कंसिडर्ड. Stylus is not working. Anyhow, मार्च 19 तक का डाटा ही लेंगे, यानी वो डाटा जो 3B मार्च 19 तक की 3B में चला गया, यानी जिसपे आपने तब तक टैक्स पे कर दिया हुआ था, प्लस जिसके ऊपर आपने आज तक टैक्स नहीं दिया. फॉर एग्जाम्पल एसएससी मेरे पास आता है, मैं कहती हूँ अरे आपकी तो कमीशन थी, वो कहता वो मेरे पर्सनल अकाउंट में थी, मैंने तो टैक्स पे नहीं किया. क्यों नहीं किया भाई? इट वॉज अंडर द सेम पैन. जब आपके ऊपर सेम पैन में जीएसटी नंबर था, यू आर रिक्वायर्ड टू पे, यानी आपको एडिशनल लायबिलिटी मिली जो उसने पहले डिस्क्लोज ही नहीं की. सो वो डाटा जो 3B टिल मार्च तक जा चुका है, प्लस जो अभी तक कहीं नहीं गया, दैट फॉर्म पार्ट्स ऑफ योर टेबल नंबर 4. That form parts of your table number 4. अब इसी के related quickly हम कुछ example भी go through कर लेते हैं. We'll be taking few examples on it. Right. So here it says, sir, GSTR 1 is not to be checked. 3B is to be checked कि मेरी information part 2 में आएगी, यानी table 4 में आएगी या table 5 में जाएगी. सर हर चीज के लिए, बिकॉज टैक्स पेड इज द बेसिक थिंग. सो फॉर टेबल 4 और 10 मार्च तक की जो करेक्शन कर दी, मार्च तक जो डाटा फीड कर दिया, दैट विल फॉर्म पार्ट ऑफ टेबल 4. एंड मार्च के बाद जो किया अप्रैल से सितंबर तक, दैट विल गो टू टेबल नंबर 10. बट आपको कौन से रिटर्न के अकॉर्डिंग देखना है, दैट इज 3B. राइट, सो हैव अ लुक. सर ये एक इनवॉइस था जो 7/7 का था, 1 में अगस्त में चला गया और 3B में भी अगस्त में चला गया, लेकिन इसको अमेंड किया मई 19 में. अमेंडमेंट कब की? 3B में भी बाद में की, 1 में भी बाद में की. सो जो इनवॉइस की वैल्यू है वो तो पार्ट 2 में आ जाएगी, बट जो अमेंडमेंट की, क्योंकि वो मार्च 19 के बाद की, दैट विल गो टू टेबल नंबर 10. राइट, नाउ नेक्स्ट सेम रूल अप्लाइज टू द क्रेडिट नोट ऑल्सो. Same applies to the credit note also, which says if the this invoice, this credit note was shown in June 19 itself. दोनों में कब शो किया? आफ्टर मार्च 19. बिकॉज इट इज शोन आफ्टर मार्च 19, तो ये कहाँ जाएगा? सारा का सारा पार्ट 5 में जाएगा. नेक्स्ट में भी हमने क्या किया? ये करेक्शन हमने ड्यूरिंग द ईयर ही कर दी. सर जब करेक्शन ड्यूरिंग द ईयर मार्च 19 से पहले ही कर दी, then it will go to serial number 4. Right, moving ahead. Now it says
नहीं. Actually, we are not able to hear you. It seems that you have gone on mute. Yeah. You can unmute.
Yeah, now I
yourself.
can, sir. Actually, it went muted, but I was unable to unmute it. Yeah, okay now. Now, moving ahead. We were talking about that the 3B is a prevailing document over GSTR 1. So here also there is an invoice which was dated 5/9/2018 and has not been shown anywhere. Sir, the invoice which is not shown anywhere is also to form part of part 2. So जो information हमने 3B में दिखा दी और जो कहीं नहीं दिखाई आज तक, that will form your table number 2, part 5. So similar is the example. I will just take an example. Now in this case, I come to this point so that we will be able to cover it up. Books of accounts में value थी 15,000, 3B में value थी 10,000 और अगले साल 2,500 correct की. Now what will happen? सर ये 2500 मैंने आज तक कहीं दिखाया ही नहीं, जो आज तक कहीं दिखाया ही नहीं, प्लस जो दिखा दिया 10,000 जो मैंने 18-19 में दिखा दिया, प्लस 2,500 which has not been shown anywhere. 12,500 will go to table 4, will go to table 4, and 2,500 जो हमने अप्रैल के बाद करेक्ट किया in the financial year 1920, that will go to your table number 10. अगर मैं नेक्स्ट केस देखूं, मेरी GSTR 1 में करेक्शन जो की गई वो अगले साल की गई। GSTR 1, GSTR 3B में डाटा बिल्कुल करेक्ट गया, पहले 15 था, बाद में भी 15 ही रहा, बट GSTR 1 में करेक्शन बाद में की गई। नाउ व्हिच डॉक्यूमेंट प्रिवेल्स? 3B। 3B में तो 18-19 में ही ठीक था, सो एंटायर 15,000 विल गो टू टेबल नंबर 4 and whatever, but in the next case जहां 1 करेक्ट भेज दी but 3B में गलती रह गई, then in that case the data will be going to table 4 only with 10,000, only with 10,000 and 5,000 because 3B 1920 की यूज की है, so it will go to table number 10. So this was the basic idea that how the table 4 has to be considered. राइट नाउ कमिंग बैक, सर टेबल 4 में मेरी टैक्सेबल सप्लाईज है और टेबल 5 में मेरी नॉन टैक्सेबल सप्लाईज है, बट द एंटायर डाटा इज अप टू March 19 और आफ्टर दैट वी विल मूव टू पार्ट 5. सर टेबल 6, 7, 8, 6 में 3B का डाटा मांगता है वो। टेबल 6 is entirely based upon GSTR 3B. तो इसमें हम जब बाइफिकेशन भी देंगे तो हम एज पर 3B ही देंगे। आई विल कम टू इट इन अ वाइल फॉर दिस 3। सर जब ये यहाँ डाटा पिक करेगा ना, सो ये ऑटोमेटिकली 17-18 की फिगर्स इसमें इंक्लूड कर जाएगा। It will include the figures pertaining to 17-18. And you know now the bifurcation option has been withdrawn and you can directly show entire input into the input column only from the 6B to 6E, right? 6B to 6D. Now moving ahead. Sir, अगर मैं टेबल 8 मेरा 2A के केस में, अब आपको पता है पहले टेबल 8A में हमें प्रॉब्लम आती थी कि हमें समझ नहीं आता था कि वो फिगर कहां से पिक कर रहा है। Now, just a few days back, the government has introduced the new provision. You have, sir, actually PPT screen. Is the PPT screen not clearly visible? Sachin ji has written it.
It is visible to me. There is absolutely no issue, actually.
Okay, Sachin ji, please. Then you have to check it at your level, right? Now in case of 2A, sir, recently utility has been brought in जिसमें वो आपको बाइफिकेशन देता है कि 2A से फिगर किस तरह से उन्होंने पिक की है। अगर सामने वाले ने रिटर्न भरी है या नहीं भरी है। सो बट लेट मी टेल यू, बहुत सारे क्लाइंट्स ऐसे जिनमें अभी ये बटन यहाँ तो विजिबल नहीं है, या फिर जिनमें आ रहा है the data is not correctly flowing. It has included the data for 1920 also. So this utility is in the development mode and in some of my cases 8A में figure आ ही नहीं रही. So there are a few technical glitches, but however government has given you an option that you can do one thing. टेबल 8 के केस में आप इसको PDF में बना के 9C के साथ अटैच कर सकते हैं, जिससे कि आपको प्रॉब्लम नहीं आएगी और आप एक्चुअल फिगर जो 2A में आनी है वो आप पिक कर सकते हैं, राइट? सो एंड दैट इवन डज नॉट रिक्वायर द CA attestation. Now this was the brief idea that what the tables are. So table 9 is a very important table. How come? This table 9 this table 9 of GSTR 9, it has two parts. One is the payable column, another is the paid column. When it is a payable column, then आप इसकी figures change कर सकते हो, means the gray part you can change, but the orange part is a non-editable part. और क्योंकि ये वैल्यूज 3B से पिक करता है, सो यहाँ पे भी एक हमने बात की 6A में 17-18 के इफेक्ट्स होंगे। सिमिलरली इसके पेड पार्ट में भी, क्योंकि ये फिगर 3B से पिक कर रहा है, यू विल बी फाइंडिंग दैट यहाँ पे जो फिगर्स रिपोर्ट होंगी दैट विल हैविंग द इफेक्ट्स ऑफ फिगर्स ऑफ 17-18. Right now, moreover, the tax payable way, this is the base column from where I check my returns. Sir, tax payable आपकी actual liability को depict करेगा, जो आपकी 18-19 की होनी चाहिए। कैसे? जो आपके टेबल 9 का पेबल वही होगा जो आपके बुक्स का पेबल होगा, बट सिर्फ जो एडजस्टमेंट आपने मार्च 19 के बाद की, उसके लिए टेबल 10 और 11 की एडजस्टमेंट कर लीजिएगा, राइट? सो टेबल 4 मस्ट ऑलवेज शो योर लायबिलिटी एज पर एक्चुअल बुक्स, जो आपने 3B मार्च तक दिखा दी, प्लस जो आज तक कभी नहीं दिखाई, जिसके लिए आपको DRC 03 पे करना है। और सर, पेबल और पेड का डिफरेंस 2 कारणों की वजह से आएगा, या तो 17-18 की फिगर्स की वजह से, सेकेंडली या तो आपने टैक्स कम पे किया तो DRC 03, और यहां ज्यादा पे किया तो रिफंड। सो GSTR 9 का पेबल और पेड कॉलम 3 कारणों की वजह से, एज आई टोल्ड यू, 17-18 की फिगर्स, पेबल DRC 03, एक्सेस पेड, रिफंड, राइट? बुक से मैच करने के लिए आप इस पेबल की कॉलम को उठाइए, इसमें 10 और 11 जो आपका अभी ये 10 और 11 जो आपका है, जिसमें 10 में आप लायबिलिटी ऐड करते हो और 11 में आप लायबिलिटी माइनस करते हो, ये इफेक्ट दोगे तो आपकी 18-19 से फिगर्स मैच कर जाएंगी, बुक्स ऑफ अकाउंट से फिगर्स मैच कर जाएंगी, राइट? Now I directly come to the spillover effects, right? Let's have a spillover effects, how we will be dealing with it. Sir, spillover effects को I will divide into 2 parts. Formulas पे मैं 2 मिनट में आऊंगी. Sir, आउटपुट इफेक्ट में मेरे कौन से टेबल इफेक्ट होंगे? टेबल नंबर 4, टेबल नंबर 9, टेबल नंबर 10 एंड 11. सर, आउटपुट के केस में आप मुझे बताइए, जब मेरा टेबल 4 जो हमारा टेबल है जहां पे टैक्सेबल टर्नओवर आती है, टेबल 4 में फ्रॉम वेयर आई विल पिक द डाटा? सर, टेबल 4 में जब भी मैं सेल लूंगी तो मुझे कौन सा डॉक्यूमेंट बेस लेना था? 3B. मुझे कौन सा डॉक्यूमेंट बेस लेना था? 3B. एग्जाम्पल से देखते हैं. आपके पास 3B में सेल शो हो रही है जिसका टैक्स है 1,03,000. कितना टैक्स है? 1,03,000. आप कहते हो जी 1,03,000 पे मैंने टैक्स पे किया हुआ है. मैं कहती हूँ 1 मिनट, पिछले साल का टेबल 10 और 11 खोल के देख लीजिए. जब हमने लास्ट ईयर की रिपोर्ट हम साथ लेके चलेंगे. लास्ट ईयर का जब मैंने टेबल 10 और 11 देखा, मैंने कहा था 17-18 की 2 एडजस्टमेंट मैंने अगले साल में की हुई है. 17-18 की 2 एडजस्टमेंट क्या अगले साल मैंने 17-18 से, यानी 18-19 की 3B में पिछले साल के 2 इफेक्ट्स हैं. आउटपुट बढ़ी हुई है 5,000 से और एक आउटपुट कम हुई है 2,000 से. तो मैं अल्टीमेटली बोलूं कि 3,000 रुपीज का नेट इफेक्ट दिया गया है. अल्टीमेटली कितने का नेट इफेक्ट दिया गया है? 3,000 रुपीज का पिछले साल का नेट इफेक्ट है. तो इसका मतलब इस साल की कितनी फिगर है मेरी 3B में? 18-19 से पर्टेनिंग जो फिगर है 3B में, दैट इज 1 लाख रुपीज. सर, यही 10 और 11 टेबल का जो 5,000 और 2,000 है, यही हमें आउट निकाल के और अपनी फिगर्स को कंपेयर करना है. Because my freezed figures in 3B की फिगर मैं चेंज नहीं कर सकती. 3B की फिगर है 1,03,000. 3,000 उसमें पिछला इफेक्ट है और 1 लाख इस साल की फिगर शोन है. तो केसेस देखते हैं. I have made here 6 cases for your reference. What are those 6 cases? सर, हो सकता है 1 लाख ही इस साल की आउटपुट थी, 1 लाख ही आपने दिखाई है. करेक्टली शोन. I understand this is not the actual the ideal case. Now 1 लाख था, 1 लाख ही करेक्ट दिखाया। सर एक बात याद रखिएगा, करंट ईयर का टेबल 10 और 11, करंट ईयर का टेबल 10 और 11 में सिर्फ और सिर्फ वो इफेक्ट्स आएंगे जो पर्टेनिंग टू 18-19 है और जिसकी एडजस्टमेंट आपने 19-20 में की है। पर्टेनिंग टू 18-19 है बट आपने एडजस्टमेंट 19-20 में की है, उसमें पिछले साल का कोई इफेक्ट शो नहीं करना है, क्योंकि आपने करंट ईयर की फिगर बिल्कुल करेक्ट शो की थी, तो टेबल 10 और 11 में कोई फिगर नहीं आएगी। 1 लाख इस साल का, मैंने कहा था टेबल 4 में 18-19 की एक्चुअल फिगर जानी चाहिए, तो टेबल 4 में कितनी फिगर जाएगी? 18-19 की एक्चुअल, विच इज 1 लाख, विच इज 1 लाख। टेबल 9 हमेशा टेबल 4 से मैच करेगा। सो दिस इज ऑल्सो द वे आई चेक माई रिटर्न्स ऑल्सो। टेबल 9 में हमेशा फिगर वही आएगी पेबल में जो टेबल 4 में होगी। सो 1 लाख ही इस साल का पेबल था, लेकिन जब सिस्टम पेड पिक करेगा वो कितना पिक करेगा? 1,03,000। क्यों? उसने तो कहना है 3B में इस साल पेड कितना है? 1,03,000। आप जब इसका डिफरेंस निकालेंगे कैसे? सर BRS प्रिपेयर करते हैं सिमिलर वे, मैं कहूंगी 1,03,000 3B में गया, माइनस उल्टे इफेक्ट्स कर दीजिए, -5,000 प्लस 2,000, 1 लाख। इसका मतलब 1 लाख ही मेरे बुक्स के अकॉर्डिंग था और 1 लाख ही मेरा पेबल भी खड़ा है और 1 लाख ही मेरा रिकंसिलेशन में भी निकल रहा है पिछले साल के इफेक्ट माइनस करके। सो यू कैन सी ऑल दोस टू कलर्स मैचिंग। Ultimately, I am filing a correct GSTR 9. Second, हो सकता है आपने इस बार की सेल कम शो की है। कैसे? आपकी बुक्स की सेल थी 1,08,000, आपने कितनी दिखाई थी यहाँ पे? 1 लाख रुपीज ओनली। कितनी दिखाई थी? 1 लाख रुपीज ओनली। इसका मतलब 8,000 आपने कम दिखाई है। जो 8,000 आपने कम दिखाई, क्या वो करेक्ट कर दी? यस। सेकंड केस सेज यस, मैंने नेक्स्ट ईयर में टेबल 10 में 19-20 में अप्रैल 19 से लेके सितंबर 19 तक करेक्ट कर दी। सर कर दी तो वेल एंड गुड, 8,000 आपके टेबल 10 में चला जाएगा और वही टैक्स इफेक्ट टेबल 14 में आएगा। सर बुक से सब कुछ मैच हो गया? हाँ जी। 1,08,000 मेरी बुक्स की एक्चुअल फिगर थी, 1 लाख मेरा टेबल 4 में आएगा। क्यों? 8,000 की एडजस्टमेंट मैंने मार्च 19 के बाद की है, तो वो टेबल नंबर 14 में जाएगी, टेबल नंबर 10 में जाएगी, 10 में और उसका टैक्स इफेक्ट 14 में। बट अल्टीमेटली जब मैं पेबल देखूंगी, पेबल आपने कहा था हमेशा टेबल 4 और टेबल 9 सेम होगा। यस, योर टेबल 9 एंड टेबल 4 1 लाख। सर 8,000 है इस साल का जरूर, बट आप उसकी एडजस्टमेंट कर चुके हो, तो वो पार्ट 5 का पार्ट बन गई। अब अगर मुझे बुक से मैच करना है, टेबल 4 1 लाख प्लस टेबल 10 ऑफ करंट ईयर 8,000, 1,08,000 will match with your books. इसी चीज को अगर मैं घुमा के पकड़ूं, टेबल 3B में आपकी करंट ईयर की टर्नओवर कितनी गई हुई है? 1 लाख रुपए। कैसे? 1,03,000 में से 5,000 माइनस कर दीजिए, 2,000 ऐड कर दीजिए, पिछले साल के इफेक्ट नलीफाई कर दीजिए, और टेबल 10 में आपने कितनी दिखाई? 8,000, वो ऐड कर दीजिए, अल्टीमेटली आपकी 9 करेक्ट। 1,08,000 बुक्स की वैल्यू 1,08,000 से इट मैच्ड। और सर अगर आपने दिखाया ही नहीं, आप मेरे पास आए, मैंने बोला 8,000 की आपकी कमीशन थी, आपने दिखाया ही नहीं, तो आप कहते हो हो इस पे तो टैक्स पे करना पड़ेगा। जिस पे टैक्स पे करना होगा, यानी जिस पे DRC 03 जाना है, वो भी कहाँ आती है? टेबल 4 में। अभी हमने एग्जांपल की थी, जिसको हमने कहीं नहीं दिखाया टेबल 4 में। 1 लाख हमने 3B में दिखा दी हुई है, 8,000 हमने कहीं नहीं दिखाया जिसका मुझे DRC 03 पे करना था, तो टेबल 4 में वैल्यू कितनी आएगी? 1,08,000। सर टेबल 4 के लिए आई एम फॉलोइंग द सिंपल फंडा, shown up to 3 in 3B up to March plus not shown anywhere, but only and only figures pertaining to 18-19। जो पेबल टेबल 4 में वही पेबल टेबल 9 में। और बट सर पेड तो फ्रीज है, पेड तो फ्रीज है, पेड तो उसने 3B से पिक करना है, वो तो 1,03,000 था, वही रहना है। मैच कैसे करूं? अरे 3,000 का इफेक्ट माइनस कर दो ना पिछले साल का, 1,00,000 इस साल का, 1,08,000 लायबिलिटी, 8,000 टू बी पेड थ्रू DRC 03। पेबल और पेड का डिफरेंस या तो निकलेगा DRC 03 या निकलेगा रिफंड। अब देखते हैं, हमने कहा जी बुक्स की टर्नओवर तो 92 थी, 2 केसेस हो सकते हैं, पता लग गया, करेक्ट कर दिया। करेक्ट किया होगा तो टेबल 11 यूज किया होगा, 8,000 से कम कर दिया। और पता नहीं लगा, आज तक करेक्ट ही नहीं किया, कहीं करेक्ट नहीं किया तो टेबल 10 11 सारे नील। अब 92,000 बुक्स का आउटपुट था, आपने 1 लाख दिखा दिया, नेक्स्ट ईयर करेक्ट कर दिया। पेबल एक्चुअल कितना 18-19 का जो आपने करेक्शन की सर, वो हमें इग्नोर करनी है टेबल 4 के लिए। क्यों? वो पार्ट 5 में जानी है। तो 3B से वैल्यू पिक करेंगे। 3B क्या कहती है? पर्टेनिंग टू 18-19 कितना था? सिर्फ 1 लाख। तो टेबल 4 में आएगा 1 लाख। 9 हमेशा 4 से वैल्यू पिक करेगा पेबल कॉलम, टेबल 4 का 1 लाख। पेड कॉलम, फ्रीज्ड कॉलम 1,03,000, 3,000 का डिफरेंस, 8,000 मैंने अगले साल एडजस्ट कर दिया। तो जब मैं बुक से मैच करूंगी टेबल 4 एंड टेबल 10 और 11, तो कर दीजिए टेबल 4 माइनस 8,000, 92,000 वैल्यू मैच्ड विद द बुक्स। टेबल 9 और 9 के पेबल और पेड का इफेक्ट सिर्फ 3,000, वो पिछले साल का है। सो अल्टीमेटली, और अगर आपने कहीं शो नहीं किया, सो टेबल 10 11 में कुछ नहीं आएगा, सारे जीरो। टेबल 10 11 में कुछ नहीं आएगा, ऑल जीरो। 92,000 था, आपने कभी करेक्ट ही नहीं किया सर, अब आप उसको कम नहीं कर सकते। टेबल 9 कैन बी यूज्ड फॉर टेकिंग द रिफंड। सो अगर आपका टाइम पीरियड और सेक्शन 54 के प्रोविजंस अलाउ करते हैं, सो एक्सेस टैक्स पेड का आप रिफंड थ्रू GSTR 9 टेबल 9 क्लेम कर सकते हैं। बट एक्चुअल में व्हाट हैपेंस, एक्चुअल में द सिचुएशन इज कॉम्बिनेशन। whenever I talk to my staff, they said मैम हमें ये सब कुछ इकट्ठा ही मिल जाता है। So I thought let's make a combination also. Let's have a look. मेरी 1,10,000 की लायबिलिटी थी, राइट? उसमें से 1 लाख तो मैं शो कर चुकी 3B में, 3,000 मैंने अगले साल कम किया और 7,000 अगले साल बढ़ाया, यानी 19-20 में, और 6,000 मैंने शो ही नहीं किया, मुझे पता ही नहीं लगा। सो अल्टीमेटली क्या होगा सर? 7,000 जो 19-20 में बढ़ाया टेबल 10 में, 3,000 जो कम किया अगले साल टेबल 11 में, अगले साल के इफेक्ट्स टेबल 10 और 11 में, क्योंकि पर्टेनिंग टू 18-19 है। मेरी बुक्स की लायबिलिटी कितनी है? 1,10,000। कैसे चलेंगे? 3B में कितना शोन? 1 लाख, प्लस जो आज तक कहीं शो नहीं किया 6,000। सो टेबल 4 विल कम विद 1,06,000। जो टेबल 4 में पेबल, वही टेबल 9 का पेबल, 1,06,000। टेबल 9 पेड आएगा 1,03,000। टेबल 10 और 11 ऑलरेडी डिस्कस किया सर, DRC 03 पे होना है 6,000 से। सो अल्टीमेटली 1,06,000 मैंने यहां दिखा दिया, 4,000 की एडजस्टमेंट मैंने अगले पार्ट 5 में दिखा दी। सो अल्टीमेटली मेरी बुक्स की 1,10,000 से 1,10,000 वैल्यू मैच हो जाएगी, और इस केस में DRC 6,000 आपका पेबल निकलेगा। दिस इज द केस विच वी एक्चुअली गेट, right? So similar thing I have made for inputs also. I'm not discussing it in length due to the paucity of time, but एक चीज बस मैं इसमें बताना चाहूंगी, I have taken an assumption कि 6B मैं हमेशा bifurcation 3B के अकॉर्डिंग दूंगी, because the instruction says 6B should flow from any other ITC column of 3B. So इसका इम्पैक्ट जो पिछले साल का होगा वो आपका टेबल 8D में शो करेगा, जिसके लिए आपको अपने पास रिकंसिलेशन तैयार करके रखनी पड़ेगी कि ये मेरे पिछले साल के इम्पैक्ट से, सो दैट यू कैन यूज इट ड्यूरिंग द असेसमेंट। गवर्नमेंट ने कुछ एक्सप्लेन नहीं किया कि कहाँ इम्पैक्ट दिखाने हैं, कहाँ नहीं। वी आर वेटिंग ऑल्सो फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट टू कम फॉर इट, बट नेवरदलेस I am filing all my returns, all those are getting filed. So 9, 9C, both you can file, and this way you can negate the effects of 17, 18 and check your returns. And you must prepare a reco at your end. Sir, apart from this, जो input के impacts 9C में आने हैं, that also I have put in this explanation. Lastly, I would like to come to one of the points also, and that is these draft issues. So draft issues में मैंने आपके लिए कुछ draft suggestions also I have placed here. These are the 10 points which you can refer to while making your GSTR 9 and 9C. Apart from this, sir, last I would like to share here with you. 1 second. Here it is. Sir, this is the way I take data. I just share it. Yeah. Here. If you can see my screen, I just make it a bit smaller. Yes. Sir, this portion sales and this portion is purchase in Excel. This is the way you can get a grasp and an overlook of the idea. Sir, जब हम audit शुरू करते हैं ना, मैं यही समझ नहीं आता यहाँ से पकड़ूं कि वहां से पकड़ूं. And when you say your staff or somebody to prepare a summary for you so that you can check on the legal points, so this is the base document which you can use for. How? Sir, sales के लिए हमारे पास 3 basic चीजें जो हमें compare करनी है और तीनों ऐसे जा रही होती हैं. One is your books, another is your 3B, and third is your GSTR1. So this blue color here, I just make it a bit large. Here I will put the data of GSTR 3B. But sir, जब मैं GSTR 3B से data pick करूंगी, it will have effect of 17, 18. So यहाँ पे मैंने already formula लगा दिया. 17, 18 के टेबल 10 और 11 की एडजस्टमेंट यहाँ फॉर्मूले में प्लेस कर दीजिए. सो जब ये इसको माइनस करके यहाँ टोटल निकालता है, इसमें आपके 17, 18 के इफेक्ट्स खत्म हो गए होंगे. अब यू आर फ्री टू टैली दिस डाटा ऑफ 3B with your books and with your GSTR1. सर GSTR1 में तो आप इनवॉइसेस 17-18 के इफेक्ट की बात ही नहीं है. 17-18 के इफेक्ट्स हमें मिलते हैं 3B. तो इस फॉर्मूले से वो आपके माइनस हो जाएंगे ऑटोमेटिकली. यू कैन गिव इट टू योर स्टाफ और टू अकाउंटेंट टू गेट इट प्रीलिमिनरी फिल्ड फॉर यू, सो दैट आपको मोटा मोटा पता तो चले फर्क है कहाँ. और हमारा सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट फर्क होता है बुक्स विद 3B. बुक्स विद 3B. सर यहाँ पे ये मुझे डिफरेंस बताएगा, और माइंड इट, ये डिफरेंस 17-18 के इफेक्ट्स के बिना निकलेगा जो अभी मैंने आपसे एग्जाम्पल में डिस्कस किया. उसमें से मैं बता दूंगी कितनी एडजस्टमेंट मैंने पोस्ट मार्च 19 की है, यानी जो मेरे टेबल 10 और 11 में जानी है, और कितनी ऐसी एडजस्टमेंट है विच इज स्टिल टू बी मेड, जिसके लिए मुझे DRC 03 भरना है या वो मेरा रिफंड बनेगा. सो here also I have considered the column for RCM also, और यहाँ जो पेबल मैच कराएगा वो RCM का आउटपुट कंसिडर करके कराएगा. So entire your output side figure wise comes to your tips, and likewise your purchases also. Purchase में भी all other ITC में जो 17-18 का इफेक्ट होगा, I have placed here the formula. आपको कुछ नहीं करना, सिर्फ स्टाफ को कहना है 17-18 की रिटर्न पकड़िए, 10-11 की एडजस्टमेंट इधर दिखा दो, 12-13 की इधर दिखा. इसमें भी सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट डिफरेंस इज बुक्स विद 3B एडजस्टमेंट डन टिल March 19 and still to be done. So here also I have considered the RCM also for input, and by adding it 3B including RCM, it compares your books with 3B, giving you a bird eye view of where the differences are existing, and simultaneously you can also match the balance opening as well as closing balance, so that, और ये difference आपके sheet से match करेंगे. So with this I end up my deliberation and request sir to please take over.
Thank you so much, Anchal ji. It was really a mesmerizing lecture delivered by you. There are few questions on the chat box and YouTube, and Ashok Batra sir has also joined us. So, Anchal ji, can I request you to take any 2 questions from the chat box?
The
before we
question
hand
in
over.
front of me will quickly take over as sir is there. So Purushottam ji has asked, can you please confirm how reconciliation of table 9 will be done as tax paid is not editable? Sir, tax paid column is non-editable, but tax payable column of GSTR table 9 is editable. Reconciliation formula, I have given it in my PPT that you can refer to. If still you face, with examples I have given it there. So still if you face any difficulty, you can contact me and ask your query. One question is there. So this question has come many a times. If time limit for applying for refund 54, Sir Gaurav ji has asked a out of syllabus question not related to 3B, but anyhow, if time limit for applying refund under 54 is expired, can we reclaim the credit in 3B? Gaurav ji, for reclaiming the credit in 3B, if your 2 years have expired, so 3B time limit, you have to check as per the provisions of 16(4), whether that is permitting you or not permitting you. And when you have not applied for the refund, it must have been a part of your 3B or credit ledger only. So the question of reclaiming does not arise, right? So with this, sir, I hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Anchal ji, and I would request Sunil Garg ji to give a formal vote of thanks. Sunil ji, आप practitioner हैं, आप GST की practice करते हैं, आप मुझसे ज़्यादा इस topic को समझते हैं, तो मैं आपको एक बार unmute करने का option देता हूँ, जी सर।
आचार्य जी ने बहुत ही बढ़िया समझाया सर, हम देख रहे थे। I must mention my deep sense of appreciation for Anchal Kapoor for her explanation on that topic, especially her 20 quick summarize points and examples. तो इन्होंने पूरा एनर्जी के साथ समझाया और हमने काफी ऑडिट किए सर, तो मतलब बहुत मजा आया सुन के।
My pleasure, sir.
Thank you so much, Sunil ji. And Anchal ji, एक question members ने पूछा है, क्या ये PowerPoint presentation मिलेगी?
Sir, 100% this PowerPoint presentation also, as well as the Excel sheet also, which I discussed.
तो ये आप मुझे भेज दीजिएगा, मैं फिर इसको अपने YouTube
Anchal ji, I will also be needing this PPT.
Sir, please. Sir, you have written a complete book on it. So please, sir.
Second edition has been released yesterday only, but anyway.
Yes, sir.
It's a good presentation. I just want to have in my record.
So इसकी presentation हम अपने YouTube पे डाल देंगे. सुरेश माथुर जी ने भी, सुभाष चंद्र वर्मा जी ने भी बोला है और कई members ने बोला है. तो आंचल जी, आप मुझे PPT भेज दीजिएगा, मैं अपने updates में भी और YouTube पे भी दोनों पे डाल दूंगा. Thank you so much, Anchal ji, and looking forward to your deliberation in our certificate course. Which we have discussed will be launching in October first week. So thank you so much. Now I would, it's an extreme honor and privilege for me to introduce the legendary Shri Ashok Batra ji, C. Ashok Batra ji. मेरे अपने कॉलेज से हैं, हम दोनों एक ही कॉलेज से, श्री राम कॉलेज ऑफ कॉमर्स से हैं. और सर को जब मैं मैक्स में था, जब मैं मैक्स में फाइनेंशियल कंट्रोलर था, मैं उस टाइम से जानता हूँ. हमने सर को एडवाइस के लिए उस टाइम रिक्वेस्ट किया था. ही वाज काइंड इनफ, वो आए थे और बड़ी प्रोफेशनल एडवाइस हमें मिली थी. और उसके बाद तो जीएसटी हालांकि मेरा टॉपिक नहीं है, लेकिन जब अशोक बत्रा जी के साथ कई प्लेटफॉर्म में मैंने इंडियस के टॉपिक पे जब जीएसटी सर ने बोला तो मैंने शेयर किया और मतलब मुझे भी जीएसटी कुछ समझ में आने लगा. लेकिन मेरी ऐसी कोई अटेम्प्ट नहीं है कि मैं जीएसटी की प्रैक्टिस करूं, ना ही मेरे लिए पॉसिबल है. सर के बारे में अगर बात करूं तो कोई फोरम ऐसी नहीं है जहां पे सर ने जिस फोरम को ये हेल्प ना की हो उस फोरम पे जाके कि मेंबर्स के साथ अपने व्यूज शेयर करें. मैं ये नहीं कहूंगा कि किसी फोरम ने बुलाया नहीं हो, बुलाया तो हर फोरम चाहती है बुलाना. तो सर को सर टाइम निकालते हैं, ये बहुत बड़ी बात है. और मैंने तो जब भी सर को रिक्वेस्ट किया, सर के अपने ऑफिस की मीटिंग भी थी, उसके बाद भी उन्होंने कहा नहीं, आई विल एडजस्ट माई टाइम. सर चाहे डीवैट हो, चाहे सर्विस टैक्स हो, चाहे जीएसटी और जीएसटी ऑडिट, कोई भी फील्ड हो, हर एक पे इनकी बुक हैं और बड़ी ऐसी बुक हैं कि जिनका कोई पैरेलल नहीं है. आज अगर सर का मैं कोई पैरेलल ड्रॉ करना चाहूँ तो कोई है ही नहीं. मतलब बहुत सारे जीएसटी एक्सपर्ट्स हैं. हमारे ऑनरेबल प्रेसिडेंट अतुल गुप्ता जी भी जीएसटी एक्सपर्ट्स हैं और कई जैसे इवन आंचल कपूर जी भी, आदित्य अग्रवाल जी भी. लेकिन बुक्स के मामले में और जो डिलीवरी के मामले में जो सर का एक्सपीरियंस और सर ने जो thousands of seminars जो किए हैं उसका कोई पैरेलल नहीं है, और इतने सॉफ्ट स्पोकन है सर, हमेशा जी कह के बोलते हैं, छोटा हो बड़ा हो, और इनके ऑफिस जब भी जाते हैं पूरा टाइम देते हैं सर। सर मैं आपको एक आधी मिनट और लेके सिर्फ सीए परिवार के बारे में बताना चाहूंगा सर। 2 साल पहले हमने सीए परिवार बनाया था और हमने इसको कंटिन्यू रखा सर, और हम इसमें प्रोफेशनल अपडेट्स भेजने के अलावा सर हमने ये एक सीरीज ग्रोइंग टुगेदर शुरू की है जिसमें ये सर।
संजीव जी मैं इंटरप्ट कर रहा हूँ, आई एम रियली
Yes, sir.
सॉरी फॉर दैट। मेरा ये है, जितने भी लोग अटेंड कर रहे हैं, अगर उनके दिमाग में कोई क्वेरी है तो वो चैट बॉक्स में लिख सकते हैं, क्योंकि जब मैं
Yes.
डेलिब्रेट करूंगा तो उन क्वेरीज को मैं चैट बॉक्स में पढ़ के उसको ओरिएंट ऐसे करूंगा अपने डिस्कशन को, सो दैट दे कैन गेट द आंसर एंड वी कैन सेव द टाइम। दैट्स ऑल, थैंक यू।
Yes, sir.
प्लीज कंटिन्यू।
थैंक यू सो मच सर। सर ये हमने ग्रोइंग टुगेदर सीरीज शुरू की है जिसमें आज ये 3rd वेबिनार है, एवरी वीक करते हैं, और इसमें हम एक 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 यंग स्पीकर और एक एक्सपीरियंस स्पीकर को साथ में रखते हैं ताकि दोनों को मतलब जो हमारे यंग स्पीकर हैं उनको मोटिवेशन मिले, नए यंग स्पीकर्स भी आए। और सर हमने कोविड-19 के टाइम पे भी सोसाइटी के लिए, मतलब ये सीए परिवार सिर्फ प्रोफेशनल अपडेट्स के लिए नहीं है सर, हमने सोसाइटी के लिए हम सब ने मिलकर फंड्स पूलिंग किए, 1 लाख मील पैकेट्स हमने डिस्ट्रीब्यूट किए, 1000 पीपी किट्स डॉक्टर्स को डिस्ट्रीब्यूट की, 2000 केजी ड्राई राशन एक आश्रम को दिया, 3000 रीयूजेबल मास्क दिए। तो ये सारा हमारा सीए परिवार एक फैमिली है, फैमिली ही मानते हैं हम इसको। और अब इसमें एक बुक भी हमने निकाली है, क्वालिफिकेशंस इन ऑडिटर रिपोर्ट। तो हमारा एंडेवर यही है कि जितने भी हमारे यंग स्पीकर, यंग ऑथर्स आगे आना चाहते हैं उनको एक प्लेटफॉर्म दें, और सोसाइटी एट लार्ज के लिए जो कुछ कर सकें वो कर सकें। और इसमें आपका साथ मिला सर आज की सीरीज में, आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर, आपकी ब्लेसिंग हमेशा रही है मुझ पर, और ऐसे ही सर आगे बनाए रखना। और इसी के साथ सर मैं आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा अपना डेलिब्रेशन जो आपने टॉपिक सजेस्ट किया था इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट पे, उस पे करें सर, और जैसे भी मेंबर्स के जिस भी ऑर्डर में सर आप क्वेश्चंस लेना चाहें प्लीज फील फ्री टू डू दैट सर। अप्रॉक्सीमेटली 1 घंटे का टाइम हम मान के चल लेते हैं, बाकी सर नेचुरली आप जैसे ठीक समझे सर उसके ऊपर है।
देखिए,
थैंक यू वेरी
looking to
मच
the
सर।
time framework rather than hushing up the topic, I will just take one section 16 only, which is the basic section which permits you to avail the credit.
ठीक है सर।
And before I go to that, first of all, my sincere thanks to CA Parivar family for providing me this opportunity. It is indeed a honor for me to deliberate on this very interesting topic on this platform, who is not only concerned with the professional work but also doing the social work also. So Sanjeev ji, my all the best to all your endeavors, including the social cause. And with this, I'm sharing my screen now so that
Sure,
we
sir.
can
Thank
start
you,
with
sir.
the deliberation. Permit me to share the screen.
Sir, you can sir, it is allowed to all.
Friends, topic of the day is input tax credit, and we all know that one of the objective of introducing GST was to avoid the cascading effect. That means there should not be any tax on tax, and GST is being framed to overcome that difficulty. This is one of the prime objectives. Of course, we all understand that this objective has not been fully achieved because still we are liable to pay custom duty for which we don't get the credit. Then there are block credit in the section 17.5 for which we are not entitled for the credit. Some of the goods are outside the ambit of GST like alcoholic liquor for human consumption, petroleum product, etc. But to a great extent, it has been able to achieve the objective. And some of the problems are coming from place of supply rules also, wherein I cannot adjust the SGST and CGST of one state against another state's liability. But yet, I will say broadly, this GST has been able to achieve. Now the question comes, what is tax credit? Being a chartered accountant and being an accounting person, in accounting terminology, I will say it is a current asset. But in case you look at minutely, then whatever you are buying goods or procuring services, you are paying GST on that. So once there is an invoice of rupees 100, 18 rupees has been charged in GST. Now you had two options. One option is you can claim 118 rupees as an expense in your profit and loss account. And in that situation, whatever amount you will collect from your customer, you will have to deposit the whole amount with the department. And the second option is, while computing my income under the Income Tax Act, I can expense only rupees 100 and then 18 rupees is being capitalized as a current asset, which can be used to discharge my tax liability, and it is being allowed as a deduction out of the amount which I have collected from my customer. In a way, kindly appreciate, it is nothing but an amount paid to the department through the suppliers from whom I am receiving the services. And the same principle apply to RCM also. So in case I am entitled for the credit and I fail to claim that credit, then you can understand that I am losing the amount of credit which I have failed to claim, less the amount of income tax liability, which will be reduced because I will be expensing that tax amount in my profit and loss account, which may result into reduction in tax liability. I may be a person who is having carry forward loss, and then certainly there is no income tax saving from me. My income may be exempted. So in all those situations, the loss will be 100% and the minimum loss will be 70%. It is not like that non-claim or short claim of tax credit will result into huge losses for your business, but even excess claim of credit will also result into payment of tax along with interest and penalties which are huge. The main problem comes in those supplies which are subject to concessional rate of tax, wherein one of the condition is that you cannot claim the tax credit, like GTA. GTA, we had two options, we all understand. If I am charging tax at 5%, then I am not eligible for any ITC. In case I claim any input tax credit, then the department becomes so rude against us that rather than asking that you pay this amount of tax credit along with interest, they say you are not eligible for the concessional rate of tax and the demand is being created on the whole amount. I'll discuss with you a case law of Sachdeva Road Lines Private Limited, wherein that gentleman wrongly claimed 1 lakh credit which he was not eligible. His turnover was 40 crore. So the department, rather than asking me to pay 1 lakh rupees along with interest, they say we will not allow you the benefit of concessional rate of tax and you're liable to pay tax on that 40 crore without abatement of 75%. That means my otherwise tax liability after abatement was 1 crore 20 lakh. I was being asked to pay 4 crore 80 lakh rupees, less 1 lakh rupees credit which I have wrongly. So in the cases where there is a concessional rate of tax, we have to be very, very particular. And the same thing we have seen in the case of construction industry also, wherein the goods abatement, wherever I was charging service tax and availing the benefit of abatement, I was not allowed to claim the credit. If inadvertently I have claimed the credit, then department has demanded the tax at full rate on my whole term. So of course, excess claim of credit is also dangerous, particularly in a situation where my concessional rate of tax is based on the fact that I have not to claim the credit. Now we all understand in this GST law, and particularly in this pandemic period, that there is a huge problem of cash and profitability. If I am being burdened with huge responsibility, huge liability of tax, which I have excess claim, I think my business can be ruined. And in case I don't claim the credit, my goods and services become totally un, uncomparable with my counterpart, and certainly I won't be able to sell it. Now the question comes, after understanding that what is tax credit, it is a current assets to be used only for the payment of tax, but not to be used for the payment of interest, penalty, or any other sum. Now the question comes whether this concept of GST in whether the concept of tax credit in GST is on the similar line which was available under the VAT or Sanvat credit rules, that means service tax and excise law. Certainly not. There are two very, very important changes. In GST law, you are eligible for the credit when the goods or supplies are used or intended to be used, and when those supplies are used in the course or furtherance of business. Now, if you compare these two situations as compared to the earlier law, you will appreciate two major differences. In earlier law, let us say VAT, the credit was available for turnover of purchases when I was making it for taxable sale. Similarly, in service tax and excise, the credit was available when such inputs or services were being used in the provision of services. Now the term is used or intended to be used. Why intended to be used? Because the government thought that it is always better to manage the transactions through machine and let this credit mechanism be checked by the machine, by the technology, and there is not even a minimum human intervention, or there is no human intervention at all, so that there cannot be any manipulations. So they thought it is not possible to verify if I am selling, let us say, AK Batra and Associate is buying 10 computer from Mr. Ramlal. उस 10 कंप्यूटर की कीमत 10,000 रुपए है, जिसके ऊपर मैंने 1,800 रुपए टैक्स दिया. तो अगर सरकार मुझे ये कहे कि इस कंप्यूटर का बेनिफिट आपको मिलेगा जब आप इस कंप्यूटर को यूज करोगे, मैंने वो कंप्यूटर यूज किए 22 मार्च, खरीदे 22 मार्च को, तो मैं कुछ कंप्यूटर मार्च के महीने में यूज करूंगा, कुछ अगले साल अप्रैल में, कुछ अगले साल मई में. तो गवर्नमेंट के लिए इस ट्रांजैक्शन को ट्रैक करना ऑलमोस्ट इम्पॉसिबल हो जाएगा. तो इसलिए गवर्नमेंट ने क्या कहा कि अगर आपने 10 कंप्यूटर मार्च में खरीदे हैं तो आप इस 10 कंप्यूटर का क्रेडिट मार्च में ही ले लो. If you intend to use it for the purpose of business, whether you use it or doesn't use it, doesn't make any difference. So this is the significance of used or intended to be used. Then they say in the course or furtherance of business. If you look at this in the course, and then it is being segregated by the term or. So that means in the course of business or furtherance of business also. It has also reduced the litigation in the times to come, and also given a wide scope to the credit mechanism which was not there in the earlier law. In the earlier law, the credit was linked to the taxable event. And now the credit is not linked to the taxable event. For example, in VAT for making taxable supply, in the case of excise, manufacture, in the case of provision of service, now it is not so. Now, in case that supply is being used in the course or even for the furtherance of business. For example, in this pandemic period, lot of pharma companies are spending crores of rupees on the R&D so that they can find out a vaccine for corona. Now the question comes, some of the companies may become successful, some of the companies may not become successful. So in the case of the companies who have not become successful, whether the credit of GST which they have paid on research and development shall be available to them. In my humble understanding, yes, because they are making this R&D for the furtherance of business, in case they have been able to achieve the success, and in case they comes in first 2-3, they will be gained commercially to such an extent it is difficult to imagine in the normal times. So obviously they have taken that risk, they have spent that money, and that money is being spent for the furtherance of business. The all GST paid on research and development activity, even if no vaccine is being developed, shall be available to the pharma company, in my humble understanding. These two basic difference we must keep in mind whenever we are quoting a judgment from the earlier law to support our case in GST. So my suggestion to all of you, these two very important changes must be kept in mind. Of course, law, everybody will read you, everybody will explain you the other rules, etc. and procedure. But these two very important differences you must keep in mind every time you are reading the other laws also. Then if we come to the statutory provision, they are contained in chapter 5 of CGST Act from section 16 to 21. One very important section is there, 155, which is being given in chapter 21 of CGST, which is the last miscellaneous provision. This section has got a great significance because this section says if you are claiming the credit and you feel you are eligible for this, then the burden to prove that you are entitled for the credit lies on you. So the government has said in case anybody wants to claim the ITC, and ITC is the facility, it is not mandatory. If I don't want to use ITC, I don't want to claim ITC, I can expense it, reduce my income tax liability and pay the tax in the normal course. But because as I told you, non-claim of credit result into huge losses, everybody is claiming the ITC. So the burden of proving is on the person who is claiming the credit in section 49, which deals with the payment of tax. And then 41 says this mechanism, which is not seen the light of the day. It was initially GSTR 1 to be filed by the supplier, credit has to come in 2, and then 3 was the payment for net tax. Unfortunately, the system didn't work. Now it is GSTR 1 and 2, the credit will come automatically to you, and then you have to claim the credit in the return. Now 3B has also been mentioned as a return under section 39. So friends, what is input tax for which we are eligible for the credit? It is all taxes which are being paid under the GST, either it is IGST or it is CGST or it is UTGST. And not only that, even the tax which has been paid under reverse charge, I am eligible to claim the credit of that also. Now, in the case of reverse charge also, there can be two situations. Situation number one, where the supplier is paying tax at concessional rate, as I told you in the case of GTA, he is charging 5%. I am making payment of 5% to him only. And another situation can be where he is paying tax at regular rate, either the GTA is charging 12% or we can take another service. For an example, advocate service. अब एडवोकेट साहब ने 1000 रुपए का बिल दिया और 18% टैक्स लगा लिया जो मुझे जमा करा, तो मैं चाहे 5% की पेमेंट करूं या 18% की पेमेंट करूं, जो भी अमाउंट मैं अपने टैक्स का जमा कराऊंगा रिवर्स चार्ज में, मुझे उसका क्रेडिट इन टर्म्स ऑफ लॉ उसका मिल जाएगा in the month in which I am making the payment. So this is very, very important to understand that RCM is not an additional burden on you. It is only a compliance burden on you. You have to discharge the liability under RCM and then claim the credit thereof. Input tax credit means claiming of the input tax. Of course, if you look at the last line, it clearly spell out that once you are paying tax to the composition dealer supplier, then you are not eligible for the credit thereof. What is the subject matter of credit? It is capital goods, input and input service, which was there in the past also. But the basic difference is now the definition is so wide that it covers almost any supply of goods and services. For example, when you are making a procurement, it can be either of a goods or a service now. Both are the subject matter of GST. So that goods can be the value of which I capitalize in my books of accounts, or I may expense it in my profit and loss account. And service can be any service. Now, in case you read at these definitions, these are so wide that almost every supply procured by you is covered in this. Of course, the problem comes when it comes to apportionment. If I am using those supplies for making taxable and exempted supply, proportionate credit, which is attributable to the taxable supplies, will only be available. And in case I am using those supplies for making taxable supply, full credit is available. Or the issue is 17.5, which is block credit, which starts with the word notwithstanding anything contained in section 16.1, which is the eligible section, or 18 months credit in special circumstances. It is non-obstinate clause with both the section, meaning thereby that whatever supplies has been mentioned in 17.5 block credit that shall never be available even to the exporter, even to the banking industry where they are getting credit of 50%. Now, after understanding that, let us understand the definition. Capital goods means any good, the value of which has been capitalized. And input means any goods other than capital goods. So meaning thereby, whatever goods I am buying, I am eligible for the credit. Either I capitalize it or doesn't capitalize it. And in both the cases, the credit is available in the month in which I am receiving the invoice, as compared to earlier period where the credit of capital goods was spread over number of years. In excise, it was 50% in the first year, 50% in subsequent year. In different VAT laws, different period, but now there is no distinction. Then you can say why this distinction has been made between capital goods and input. If my credit is likely to be received in the month of purchase and there is no difference, 100% credit is available, this difference is because of certain other provisions in the law. For example, when I send the goods to the job worker for doing the job work, then certainly the time limit for return of input is 1 year, capital goods 3 years. Similarly, when I am disposing of my business asset, if it is a capital good, the life of which is being considered as 5 years, and if I dispose it off after 3 years, then 40% is the credit which I have to reverse, or the tax which is being calculated on the transactional value, whichever is higher I have. So the distinction is for different purposes of this section, not for any other reason. So input service is again defined any service used. So you can see how broad these definitions are, and they cover almost every supply received by the person in the course of business. Now, rather than going to the section first, I'll just tell you some of the basic fundamental which has been settled by various Supreme Court, High Court judgments, and which is really important to understand. One is that input tax credit, if you have availed, it is indivisible. Nobody can take that right from you. You have paid the tax through the supplier. You can utilize it even after 10 years, provided you availed it in terms of the provisions of law. Availment is correctly as per the provisions of law. Then I may use it for any period. Let us say if I have availed the credit for 17, 18 and I have not been able to use it, or I have not used it deliberately because I don't know, because of some legal battle going on in various court. For example, in the case of Safari Retreat now, it's a judgment of Odisha High Court which says any builder can avail the credit on the survey on the tax paid on the construction service for the complex which is being leased out. That matter is pending before the Supreme Court. I don't know what will happen, whether it will go in my favor or it will go against me. So what I am trying to say, I just claim the credit so that my time limit doesn't pass away in 16.4, and then I don't utilize it also, because otherwise my interest liability will be there. And in case tomorrow the judgment comes in my favor, I can use it. So kindly keep in mind, once you have availed the credit correctly, it is always indivisible. Similarly, there cannot be any demand for the credit which has been validly earned by you. This is again supported by Eicher Motors, Supreme Court. This is also Supreme Court, Dalichi Karkaria Limited. Similarly, there is no reversal of credit on unsold flat following the principle of Eicher Motors. This judgment has come. Then, can you say that ITC is an absolute right? Yes, it is an absolute right for you, no doubt. The scheme of the act is, and this is what is being done in Safari Retreat, where the provision of 17.5 has been read down. But it is subject to the conditions. So whatever conditions have been prescribed in the law, which are there in section 16.2, and I'll try to complete that section also. So once that conditions are being satisfied, then it is an absolute right. And it has been very clearly stated in a very recent judgment of ALD Automobile Private Limited versus Commercial Tax Officer, again by the Honorable Supreme Court. Once the substantive conditions are being satisfied for claim of credit, then if there is some default in the procedural condition, your credit cannot be denied to you. For example, you are a chartered accountant providing all taxable service, you are eligible for the purchase of stationery, which you are using for the purpose of your profession. But unfortunately, the person who is supplied you the stationery has done or forget to mention one of the particular which are required to be mentioned in the invoice. And the department can say, because it is not a valid invoice, it must contain all the particulars which are supposed to be mentioned. I will not allow you the credit. The department cannot do so. It can at best provide you an opportunity wherein you are able to satisfy to the court, satisfy to the authorities that the genuine claim, the only thing is the number was not mentioned and this is the evidence for that number. Certainly, you will get the credit thereof. So in every exemption notification, forget about ITC, there are always two kind of condition. One we call it substantive conditions, another we call the procedural. So once we satisfy the substantive conditions for exemptions or abatement or any benefit, then procedure will never come in our way. It is a settled legal position of law. Another important thing which I need to explain it to my professional brother, and is very important principle, that classification cannot be challenged in your hands. You may be manufacturing a fountain pen for which you are using hundreds of items which are input. You may not be aware of the rate of the tax which is applicable on all such input. If the supplier of those input have charged a tax which is higher than the rate on which the tax is leviable, then if you have paid the higher tax, you are eligible for the credit of the higher amount of tax. I'll explain it. Let us say आपने plastic दाना खरीदा. I don't know what is the rate of tax. I am just giving a hypothetical example, taking all assumptions. Assuming it is liable to be taxed at 12%. He has charged you 18%. You have paid 18% to him. Now, can the department deny you the credit saying जो प्लास्टिक दाना आपने खरीदा है इस पे तो ये इस HSM कोड में आता है और इसका रेट ऑफ टैक्स 12% है. आपने अगर ज्यादा दे दिया तो आपकी सिरदर्दी है, हम आपको 12% से ज्यादा का क्रेडिट नहीं देंगे. ऐसा डिपार्टमेंट नहीं कर सकता है इन द हैंड्स ऑफ द रिसिपिएंट. क्यों? क्योंकि आपने उनको 18 रुपए दिए, उसने 18 रुपए डिपार्टमेंट में जमा कराए, तो आपने 18 रुपए का इंसिडेंस बियर किया, तो आपके हाथ में क्लासिफिकेशन चैलेंज नहीं हो सकती है और आपको 18 रुपए का ही क्रेडिट मिलेगा. यस, इफ यू आर ए ट्रेडर and you have paid the higher tax and then you have charged less tax from the client, then it's a different issue. But the principle is, if I am a recipient of any supply and my supplier has charged tax at a higher rate, or that supply was not subject to GST, he has charged with the tax, that may be exempted supply, even then credit in the hands of the recipient cannot be denied. Again, I have already explained it, that credit of the tax paid under RCM, though paid under concessional rate of tax, is also available to me. Another suggestion I want to give to my professional brothers, wherever any person comes to you for the purpose of guidance in terms of classification or rate of tax, and you are in doubt, take a conservative view if it is a B2B transaction. Because ultimately, if you are charging higher tax, and as I told you, recipient के हाथ में वो classification challenge हो नहीं सकता, उसको पूरा credit मिल रहा है, और recipient को उसी महीने में credit मिल रहा है जिस महीने में आप invoice issue कर रहे हो. तो मेरा ये मानना है कि आपको conservative view लेना चाहिए. उससे कम से कम जो litigation होगी वो last leg पे रहेगी जो B2C की sale कर रहा है. That he has to take a call. But manufacturer से लेकर retailer तक जितनी भी transactions हैं, उसमें कहीं भी कोई litigation नहीं होगा. So this also we must keep in mind when we are advising to our client. Now I am coming to this section. Section 16(1). Every word is important. It says every registered person. Credit किसको मिलेगा? Registered person, ना कि taxable person. Tax की liability होती है the one who is liable to pay the tax, and in terms of 22, you are making a taxable supply beyond amount in excess of the minimum exemption limit, 20 lakh or 40 lakh as the case may be, then you are liable to pay the tax. But in case you are not registered, then you are in double jeopardy. आपको डबल नुकसान है. एक तो आपको आउटपुट टैक्स लायबिलिटी टैक्स देना ही है, दूसरा क्योंकि आप रजिस्टर्ड नहीं थे उस पीरियड में, तो आपको क्रेडिट भी नहीं मिलेगा। ऐसा इसलिए किया गया ताकि जो लोग बिजनेस के अंदर हैं उनको ये पता चले कि इफ आई एम बीइंग कॉट लेटर ऑन तो मुझे टैक्स तो विद इंटरेस्ट और पेनल्टी देना पड़ेगा और मुझे क्रेडिट भी नहीं मिलेगा। अगर वो ट्रेडर है, मैं एक सिंपल सा एग्जांपल लेता हूं, यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड हाउ सीरियस द इम्प्लीकेशंस आर। लेट अस से आपने 90 रुपए का माल खरीदा और आपने उसको 100 रुपए का बेच दिया। फॉर द सेक ऑफ इजी कैलकुलेशन 10% इज द रेट ऑफ टैक्स। अब आपकी 10 रुपए की लायबिलिटी है, आपने रजिस्ट्रेशन नहीं कराई तो यू आर लायबल। तो 10 रुपए पे इंटरेस्ट और पेनल्टी अगर ये 5 साल बाद हुआ तो ये 10 रुपए के 30 रुपए बन जाएंगे। और जो क्रेडिट है 90 रुपए का, वहां 16(4) की लिमिट भी खत्म हो जाएगी और वैसे भी सेक्शन में लिखा है एवरी रजिस्टर्ड पर्सन, तो क्रेडिट भी नहीं मिलेगा 9 रुपए का। तो आपको कितना नुकसान हुआ? 10 के 30 बन गए, 9 रुपए का क्रेडिट मिला 40 रुपए। कैन यू सर्वाइव इन द बिजनेस? जिस आदमी को 40% टैक्स देना पड़ जाएगा, वेयर एज मार्जिन ऑफ प्रॉफिट में भी 2%, 5%, 7%, 10%, कैन ही सर्वाइव? सो इट्स अ वेरी स्ट्रिक्ट कंडीशन। ऐसा वेट लॉ में तो पहले भी था, पर ऐसा सर्विस टैक्स और एक्साइज में नहीं था। तो दोस्तों, इस बात को बड़ा ध्यान से समझ लें कि अगर आपका कोई क्लाइंट लायबल है रजिस्ट्रेशन के लिए, तो उसको विद इन 30 days फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ लायबिलिटी यू हैव टू फाइल एन एप्लीकेशन फॉर रजिस्ट्रेशन, फेलिंग विच फॉर द पीरियड फॉर विच ही वाज नॉट रजिस्टर्ड he will not get the credit, though he will be liable to pay the tax. Subject to such condition and restriction as may be prescribed in the manner specified in Section 14. And we all know CGST and SGST are state specific. And first of all, IGST has to be exhausted. You know better than me. You are more into the compliances. Be entitled to take credit of input tax charged. यहाँ chargeable word नहीं है. I think you will appreciate चार्जेबल होता है करेक्ट रेट ऑफ टैक्स। यहाँ उन्होंने चार्जेबल लिखा, चार्ज लिखा। जैसे मैंने कहा था कि क्लासिफिकेशन कैन नॉट बी चैलेंज इन द हैंड्स ऑफ द रिसिपिएंट, तो यहाँ चार्ज वर्ड लिखा है। सो व्हाटएवर अमाउंट यू हैव पेड, you are entitled for the credit used or intended to be used. I have already explained it in the course or furtherance of business. I have already explained it, and the said amount shall be credited. As I told you, it is GST 1 and 2 mechanism already in place. So I can move to next slide to save the time. As I told you, it is being in the course or furtherance of business is segregated by conjunction or one-to-one correlation is not required. It is only in the course or furtherance of business. Even taxable event is not there. Another important aspect which you need to understand and appreciate is that you have to look at the definition of business which has been given in clause 2 of section 2 of CGST Act, which says business includes supply or acquisition of goods, including capital goods and services in connection with commencement of closure of business. So वो कहता है कि अगर आपने कोई बिजनेस सेटअप किया है तो उसके एक्विजिशन ऑफ गुड्स के लिए भी, और जब आप बिजनेस बंद कर रहे हैं तो क्लोजर के लिए भी जो एक्टिविटीज करेंगे वो भी बिजनेस की डेफिनेशन में आएंगी। मीनिंग देयर बाय, वेरी सिंपल मीनिंग, इट क्लियरली सेज कि अगर आप कोई ऑफिस सेटअप कर रहे हैं, मैं AK बत्रा रेसिडेंस दिल्ली में मेरा ऑफिस है, मैं रजिस्टर्ड हूँ, आई टेक अनदर ऑफिस इन प्रीत विहार एंड आई टेक दैट ऑफिस ऑन रेंट. I am paying the rent, I am buying furniture, computers, etc. to run my office. So that credit is available to me because it is in the business, it is for the setting up of business and it is in the furtherance of business. AK बत्रा एसोसिएट्स अपना काम बढ़ाना चाहता है तो उन्होंने एक ऑफिस और खोल लिया, तो बिजनेस की डेफिनेशन में भी आ रहा है, क्रेडिट मुझे मिलता है when it is in the course of furtherance of business. So now there is no dispute, even though no revenue has been earned by my Preet VR office, but certainly I am entitled for the credit because I satisfy the definition of business also, and those supplies are intended to be used. जब मैं बिजनेस शुरू करूंगा, अपना प्रोफेशन कैरियर करूंगा, तो मैं उसके अंदर यूज करूंगा. Credit can be used if supplies are used in establishing an office from where no revenue is generated. This is what I was telling you. Research and development का मैंने आपको वैक्सीन का एग्जांपल दे ही दिया है. So now comes conditions 16(2). This is very, very important, and I think the most important one when we come to tax credit provisions. This again starts with notwithstanding anything contained in this section. वो कहता है 16(4) में भी कुछ लिखा हो, 16(1) में भी कुछ लिखा हो, 16(3) में भी कुछ लिखा हो, डजंट मैटर, आपको क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा unless otherwise you satisfy these 4 conditions and 2 provisions. Now we'll come to that and discuss it, and then we will open it for question answer session. You must be having a duty paying document, that is a tax invoice, bill of entry, ISD invoice, and there are number of documents specified rule 36. Normally even it includes even the debit note issued by the supplier. तो जहां भी आप सप्लायर को पेमेंट कर रहे हैं और वो आपको डॉक्यूमेंट दे रहा है या इनपुट सर्विस डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर क्रेडिट डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है, वो सारे डॉक्यूमेंट एलिजिबल हैं और ये डॉक्यूमेंट आपके पास होना चाहिए. If this document is available, can you say you are eligible for the credit? No. Even if you are having a duty paying document, that is not a conclusive condition. All the conditions mentioned in this section, one is under the proviso 2, payment within 180 days, and rest of the conditions has to be satisfied so that I am eligible to claim the credit. So it is not a conclusive condition. So all the conditions need to be satisfied cumulatively. Documents मैंने बताया कि rule 36 में है मोटा मोटा, it is tax invoice, bill of entry, ISD invoice, debit note, etc. Must be issued by a registered person. There is no doubt about that, because the credit is available to the registered person, and if I am buying it from unregistered person, he cannot charge GST from me. So it is not only the sale, even the buyer should be there, but it does not include a person having a UID. UID means unique identification number. This is only to the diplomatic mission, because they are not providing any taxable supply, but as per the international mechanism, that is, there is an act, immunity from taxes under the international transaction. So under section 3 of that act, they say all diplomatic missions should be refunded the indirect taxes paid to the government in which they have established their offices. So then second condition is he must have received the goods and services. This is really important. And believe me, if I look at the arrest made in GST, it is unparalleled in the history of indirect taxes. There used to be a arrest in excise law mainly, or somewhere in service tax also, but very rare. But now in GST law, number of arrests have been made, which surpasses, I think in these 3 years, they have arrested the number of people which they have never arrested in the past since the introduction of indirect taxes in India. And all those arrests has been made simply because of this reason. Only the invoice is not sufficient to prove the transaction is genuine. Only payment through banking channel is not sufficient. You have to prove that you have received such goods or services or both. This is really important. आपके ऊपर ओनस है कि आपको ये भी प्रूव करना है कि आपने इनवॉइस ही नहीं लिया, आपने उसके साथ गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज भी लिए. If you have taken an invoice without receiving the good, they are subject to prosecution in terms of section 122. It is one of the condition, and most of the arrest has been made there. So be careful. Don't involve yourself, because in the Finance Act 20, now not only the supplier and recipient can be prosecuted, even the mastermind who has done these activities through other people. That means, for example, मैं एक mastermind हूँ, मैंने अपने PN के नाम पे फर्म बना लिया, आपको माल भेज दिया, तो PN is a supplier, PN firm is a supplier, you are a recipient. Both of you can be penalized in terms of non-allowance of credit in the hands of recipient and tax liability in the hands of supplier, even the mastermind. And they say that mastermind or any person at whose behest this transaction is being carried out. So be careful. You should not be part of that mechanism. And as a chartered accountant, we can also be into trouble if it is being proved there was a connivance and I was instrumental and I have taken some profit out of those transactions. So this is an amendment which has been recently done in this Finance Bill 2020. So be careful. Then the second important issue is that we all know initially when the law was introduced, every supplier, whether the supplier of goods or services, was liable to pay the tax on advances. But later on, this advance was not liable to be taxed in the hands of supplier of goods. Now it is only supplier of services who are liable to be taxed on advance. So once as a chartered accountant, I have received advance of 5 lakh rupees in the month of March to appear in a tribunal matter, the date of which has been fixed in May. Because the date is in May, I have taken an advance. I said, if you want to book me, if you want to block my diary, kindly pay me the full payment. He is interested in you. He has made you the payment. So you have received the advance. So obviously you are supposed to discharge your liability as a chartered accountant, as a supplier of that service. But the recipient of that service will not get the credit because he has not received such goods. So once he has not received such services, मतलब द क्लाइंट की तो अभी डेट ही नहीं आई है, उसको क्रेडिट नहीं मिलेगा, लेकिन आपसे सरकार ने टैक्स ले लिया. So in this whole scheme you will appreciate the government want to collect the tax at the earliest, whereas they want to give credit in the last. And as I told you, section 155 onus is on you to prove. Then comes explanation. This is talk about deeming receipt of goods. अगर मैंने कहा कि मेरा माल मेरे सीधे जॉब वर्कर को दे दो तो वो भी मेरे लिए रिसीट मानी जाएगी. और अगर मैंने कहा कि मेरे बिहाफ पे ये सर्विस मेरे बेटे को दे दो, मैं टैक्स दे रहा हूँ, मैं रिसिपिएंट हूँ, आई एम लायबल टू मेक द पेमेंट, बट बेनिफिशियरी इज माय सन, इवन सर्विस रिसीव्ड बाय सन will also be treated as a service received by me. Then the third condition is, which is very very controversial, और जिसके ऊपर बहुत सारे litigation चल रही है और आने वाले टाइम में होगी, is that you are not eligible for the credit if the tax on that supply has not been paid to the government by the supplier of such supply. Kindly appreciate, मैंने अशोक बत्रा से ऑडिटिंग की सर्विस ली, मुझे टैक्स क्रेडिट का बेनिफिट नहीं मिलेगा अगर अशोक बत्रा ने वो टैक्स सरकार को जमा नहीं कराया. दिस इज वेरी कंट्रोवर्शियल बिकॉज ये डिस्टिंक्शन नहीं करता. There can be two kind of recipient. One, a honest one who has nothing to do with the hanky-panky business of the supplier. He has paid the tax to banking channel, received the service, received the document. If the supplier has not paid, how can he ensure? Department has so many powers, search, seizure, so many powers, calling him, summoning him, asking him, attaching his bank account, whatever is there. But how can I ensure this? But then there are certain kind of recipient also who, in connivance with the supplier, want to defraud the government. So in the case of honest taxpayer, in my humble understanding, this clause cannot be made applicable, and the judgments which are available also indicate the same. I am sure the department will never agree to it. Wherever this condition is not being fulfilled, he will certainly disallow the credit to you. But then ITC cannot be denied for default made by the selling dealer, Jharkhand High Court, Delhi High Court in the case of Arise India. पर Arise India के against department Supreme Court में गया, वहाँ उनके SLP reject हो गई. This is unfortunate. अगर SLP reject होती by passing a speaking order, not in a summarily manner, then I am sure things would have been different. I would have taken advantage of Article 141 and that judgment would have become the law of the land. But that advantage will not be available to me. But in earlier VAT law, there have been number of judgments like Chunilal Prasadilal, but the problem is the department will also distinguish. At that point of time, the law was not precise in this condition. But so far as Arise India is concerned, it is under section 92G of the DVAT Act where the similar kind of provisions are there. And then the fourth condition is you must have furnished your return, and 3B is also being treated as a return. Now coming to the provisions, with this, after all, there are two more subsections. I'll deal with that and then we'll open it for question answer session. I will not take more than 3-4 minutes for that. You are entitled for the, once the goods are to be supplied by the supplier in lot or installment. For example, मैंने उनसे ये कहा कि आप मुझे 20 metric ton iron देंगे, and it has to be spread, let us say 210 per week. So that means the supply has to go for 10 weeks. Supplier has to pay the tax whenever he makes the first installment because he has to issue the invoice, and then photocopy of that invoice will go with all the subsequent deliveries. But the recipient will get the credit only when he receives the last lot of installment. क्योंकि इनवॉइस में तो पूरा अमाउंट लिखा हुआ है। तो वही प्रिंसिपल, सरकार को टैक्स तो पहले चाहिए, सप्लायर को पहले जमा करा देना, आपको क्रेडिट तब मिलेगा जब आपने लॉस इंस्टॉलमेंट। Second condition is that you have to make payment within 180 days. Time is not with you, with me, sorry. मैंने इसके लिए नेक्स्ट 3-4 स्लाइड्स बनाई हैं, अगर आप देखेंगे तो मैंने 15-16 इश्यूज में रेज किए हुए हैं, and I don't think I will have time to deal with that, but certainly I'll be sharing this PPT with Sanjeev Singhal ji immediately as soon as my deliberation is over. It's a very exhaustive one containing 74 slides. You can go through that, and in case anybody has got any question and is not able to understand any point which I have tried to clarify in my PPT, he is most welcome to contact me on my phone. My phone number is 9811069299, available in all my books, etc. Then it says time limit has been prescribed under section 16(4). ये 180 days का provision का थोड़ा basic principle बता देता हूँ. It says कि you have to make the payment within 180 days. Credit is available in the month of purchase. अप्रैल में माल आया, सितंबर तक मुझे पेमेंट करनी है. पेमेंट नहीं की तो अक्टूबर में मुझे क्रेडिट को रिवर्स करना है, और जब मैं उस पेमेंट को करूंगा, चाहे 2 साल बाद करूं, तो मुझे वो क्रेडिट मिल जाएगा. तो 16(4) की लिमिट भी आने लगती है. एक और इंटरेस्टिंग रूल इन्होंने बनाया 36(4), जो ये कह रहे हैं कि जितना आपका क्रेडिट 2A में आता है उसके 10% मिला के आपको क्रेडिट मिलेगा, उससे ज्यादा नहीं मिलेगा. अगेन दिस रूल इज अंडर चैलेंज बिफोर वेरियस हाई कोर्ट्स, बट एज ए प्रोफेशनल वो जजमेंट कब आएगी, कैसे आएगी, मेरे क्लाइंट को तो आज सॉल्यूशन चाहिए. तो मेरा ये मानना है कि जहाँ छोटा व्यापारी है वो 2A का ही क्रेडिट ले ले, क्योंकि इतना डिटेल रिकॉर्ड बनाना, आपने 10% फालतू क्लेम कर लिया तो कौन से इनवॉइस में कैसे एडजस्ट करेंगे, पॉसिबल नहीं. जो बड़ी कंपनीज हैं जहां अमाउंट और कैश फ्लो बहुत ज्यादा है, तो वो तो उसको चैलेंज ही कर रहे हैं, वो पूरा ही क्रेडिट क्लेम कर रहे हैं. उसका नुकसान क्या होगा? अगर मान लीजिए मेरी सारी जेन्युइन ट्रांजेक्शन है, तो वो इनवॉइस आज नहीं तो 2 महीने बाद मेरे इनवॉइस में आ जाएगा. माय सप्लायर विल करेक्ट हिज इनवॉइस विद इन नेक्स्ट 2-3 months. So the department can say that you have availed the credit earlier. So in that case, I may have been liable to pay interest on that. So in my humble suggestion, look into the time constraint, one line suggestion to all professional brother: either you don't follow it, claim the credit in 2A, or you challenge this provision, claim the full credit as per your books of accounts. In between, there is no choice, because maintenance of record as per this rule is next to impossible. Now, these are the conditions with regard to 180%. I would not like to deal with this. I straightforward come to section 16(3). ये 16(3) यही कहता है कि अगर आपने कोई कैपिटल गुड्स खरीदी है और उस पे आपने GST दिया है, तो आप उस GST को कैपिटलाइज नहीं करेंगे for the purpose of claiming depreciation. If you do that, then you will lose the benefit of tax credit. For example, you are buying a computer for 10,000 rupees, 1,800 is the GST. In case you capitalize the computer at 11,800, claim depreciation under section 32 of the Income Tax Act on 11,800, you will not be entitled for the credit of 1,800 rupees. Yes, in case you capitalize the computer with 10,000, then 1,800 is available to you as credit. So this was the provision which was there in earlier service tax and excise also. There is nothing new. So I am moving further, and then the next and the last subsection of section 16(4) prescribe the time limit. They say जिस साल का क्रेडिट है उसके अगले साल में, फॉलोइंग फाइनेंशियल ईयर में, जो ड्यू डेट फॉर द मंथ ऑफ सितंबर है, फॉर एग्जांपल आज की डेट में 20 अक्टूबर तक मुझे रिटर्न देना है, तो 20 अक्टूबर तक मैं क्रेडिट ले सकता हूं पिछले फाइनेंशियल ईयर का. पहले इसमें प्रॉब्लम आती थी कि जो डेबिट नोट होता था वो भी उसी पीरियड का होना चाहिए, और जहां कहीं मेरी सेटलमेंट 2 साल के बाद होती थी और डेबिट नोट नेक्स्ट ईयर में आता था, उसका क्रेडिट नहीं मिलता था. पर इस फाइनेंस बिल 2020 में वो एनॉमली भी दूर कर दी गई है. डेबिट नोट जिस डेट का है, आपको उस फाइनेंशियल ईयर से अगले फाइनेंशियल ईयर में ड्यू डेट ऑफ सितंबर पे देखना है. Forget about when the original invoice was being issued. So original invoice and debit note both have been de-linked now. मैंने इनवॉइस रेज किया 100 रुपए का अगस्त 2019 में, मुझे 20 अक्टूबर 2020 तक क्रेडिट मिलना है. इसका डेबिट नोट इशू किया मैंने 5 अप्रैल 2020 में, तो मुझे इसका क्रेडिट मिलना है 20 अक्टूबर 2021. With this, look into the time constraint. I am not moving further. I am concluding my discussion here, and the floor is open for the question answer session. So whatever question answer you want to ask me, please, I'll try to answer to the best of my ability.
So thank you so much, sir. Sir, there are a few questions in the chat box. There are a few questions on YouTube also. So probably you can take questions from chat box.
I have opened the chat box.
Yes, sir.
Sir, please repeat your mobile number 9811069299, available on my books. Whether timeline extension till 31st August will be considered as applicable for 180 days. This is a disputed issue because it is not a time where there is some statutory obligation. It is one of the condition of claiming the credit. So there can be argument that both the views can be there, but in my humble opinion, 31st August will not be considered. This is my personal opinion. You can take your own call. Eligibility of ITC in case of supplier charges tax on exempt supply. Whether buyer will be eligible to take ITC of such tax charge. Certainly, as I told you time and again, classification cannot be challenged in the hands of the recipient. Either he charges tax on the exempt supply or charges tax at a higher rate than it was liable. Your credit cannot be denied. Very informative. Thanks. So obviously doesn't require any answer. I'm really thankful. Barring that, I could not see any question in the chat.
Sir, there are a few questions on YouTube. Vishal Agarwal ji is asking a question that can we claim RCM input of FY 18-19 now, taking into consideration
Certainly
non-option
not.
clause?
Certainly not. 16.4 is gone, and this time limit is applicable to both the tax year forward and result.
Right, sir. So there is a
It
question
should be
from
claimed as an expense so that you can reduce your tax liability.
right, sir. There is a question from Abhineet Singh. To below 2 crore input claimed excess in 17-18, still to below 2 crore in 18-19, 19-20. What is the remedy to pay differential tax by filing 9 or any other form?
I couldn't get this question.
Sir, actually, I also didn't understand properly. It says, I mean, if any of the other GST expert understand this.
If you can read it.
Sir, yes, sir. The query for Honorable Batra, sir, dash to below 2 crore dash input claimed excess in 17-18, still to below 2 crore in 18-19, 19-20. What is remedy to pay differential tax by filing 9 or any other?
देखिए, आपने अगर टैक्स कम जमा कराया है, तो चाहे उसके 2 साल हो गए, आपका टर्नओवर कुछ भी है, so one option is always available in the law. You can always discharge your liability through DRC 06. You can say that either I have wrongly claimed the credit or I have paid tax at a lower rate. वो DRC 03 में आप अपनी liability claim करके आज भी दे सकते हैं. And once there is no investigation by the department and you pay the tax along with interest, then department cannot even serve you a show cause notice. If that is being done, forget about the turnover limit. Either it is 2 crore or 500 crore. This facility is available to all the supplier of goods and services who want to discharge tax honestly.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, there's one more question from Vishal Agarwal ji. In case of differential tax liability, is there any option available which restricts the taxpayer from filing GSTR 9 without paying tax through DRC 03?
Filing of GSTR 9 without payment of tax, then auditor can qualify his report in 9C. Form 9 is only a reconciliation statement. If you want to file 9, it can be done. Even 9C can be done. If you don't pay the tax, what can the auditor do? Auditor can only qualify his report and inform to the department. That's all.
Right, sir. So there is one question, whether a grant released by a multilateral agency are applicable for levying of GST.
देखिए, grant एक बड़ा सिंपल टर्म है, बट इसके implications बहुत ज्यादा हैं. चाहे वो income tax हो, चाहे वो company law हो, it is not a consideration. So any supply without consideration can be subject to tax only when it is between related person or distinct person or an activity as is specified in Schedule 1. Normally Schedule 1 की applicability नहीं होती है. So अगर दो इंडिविजुअल या दो कमर्शियल कंपनियों के बीच में ट्रांजैक्शन है और वहां ग्रांट है, grant means you are paying payment gratuitously without expecting anything from the other person. अब कई बार मैंने देखा, मैंने केस लड़ा था एक, मैं नाम नहीं लेना चाहूंगा क्लाइंट का, बहुत बड़े क्लाइंट है, तो उन्होंने ये कहा जी हमें तो ग्रांट मिलती है, पर जब एग्रीमेंट देखेंगे तो जो रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट को फाइनेंस करती थी कंपनी इन द नेम ऑफ ग्रांट, वो ये कहती थी कि आप अपना जो इनवॉइस इशू करेंगे उसके पीछे हमारा लोगो लगाएंगे या सर्टिफिकेट के पीछे लोगो लगाएंगे, तो दैट मीन्स यू आर गेटिंग सम बेनिफिट इन काइंड, इट इज नॉट ए ग्रांट. Similarly, this grant word has created a problem for all the fiscal laws. So we need to understand, if it is a grant, no question of any tax liability, but it has to be a grant in real sense, not by nomenclature.
Right, sir. Sir, a question, a new RC apply is with effect from date of RC apply, not date mentioned in with effect from say 10 days before applying. इतना ही लिखा है सर, ये चैट बॉक्स में क्वेश्चन है.
मैं देख लेता हूँ.
यस सर. और एक पुरुषोत्तम बोरा जी का है और एक ये वाला क्वेश्चन है अतिशय सिंगला.
वेदर अमाउंट ये तो हो गया सर. उसके बाद
सर एक क्वेश्चन, थर्ड लास्ट क्वेश्चन है.
कैन यू प्लीज कंफर्म हो, आई डोंट नो, कहीं मिक्सअप हो गया, टाइम बता दें तो मैं पढ़ लेता हूँ. मैं रजिस्ट्रेशन के बारे में इतना कहना चाहूंगा, लॉ ये कहता है कि जिस दिन आपकी लायबिलिटी बनी आपको विद इन 30 डेज अप्लाई करना है. अगर आप कर देते हैं 30 डेज तो जो स्टॉक था आपका लायबिलिटी वाले दिन उसका क्रेडिट आपको मिल जाएगा. बट अगर 30 दिन के बाद करते हैं, टैक्स तो आपको देना है फ्रॉम द डेट ऑफ लायबिलिटी, लेकिन क्रेडिट आपको मिलेगा जिस डेट से रजिस्ट्रेशन. सो दैट मींस योर आईटीसी फॉर द परचेजेस मेड बिटवीन द डेट व्हेन यू बिकम लायबल टिल यू गेट द रजिस्ट्रेशन सर्टिफिकेट विल बी लॉस्ट.
Thank you so much, sir. With this, there are no more questions, and I would request Sunil Garg to conclude and give a vote of thanks to Ashok Batra ji for his extremely useful deliberation and answering all the questions. सर आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है सुनील जी. म्यूट पे भी नहीं है वैसे आप.
माइक के पास मुंह रख के ना थोड़ा सा माइक क्लोजर आ जाए. हाँ जी.
नहीं आ रही है सुनील जी, आवाज नहीं आ रही है. उसका लैपटॉप ले लीजिए, मनोज का. मनोज साथ में बैठा है.
मुझे ये लगता है कि अब हम चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स को थोड़ा सा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में भी इन्वेस्ट ज्यादा करना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज
यस सर, बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं सर. सर मैं मनोज वाले को म्यूट करता हूँ. सुनील जी अब तो डिजिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट ही चलेंगे सर. सर मैंने मनोज वाले को म्यूट, मनोज वाला
म्यूट हो गया.
हाँ एक को म्यूट कर दीजिए सर, वरना वॉइस इको करेगी.
यस सर वो लास्ट टाइम भी ऐसा. हाँ सर अब आ रही है.
हाँ बिल्कुल आ रही है.
एक यस सर अब आ रही है ना. सॉरी.
हाँ जी आ रही है.
सर सबसे पहले तो मैं बत्रा जी को नमस्ते करना चाहूंगा. नमस्कार सर. बत्रा जी कहाँ चले गए सर? बत्रा जी है ना. हाँ.
मुझे लगता है कि लॉग ऑफ हो गए हैं गलती से.
अच्छा फोन करूं सर को एक बारी?
कोई बात नहीं, आप इतने अपने कंक्लूडिंग रिमार्क्स तो हो सकता है दोबारा आ जाएं, या ये हो सकता है कोई और मीटिंग आ गई हो.
अच्छा. Sir, on behalf of CA Parivar and on behalf of all the participants, I, CA Sunil Garg, extend a very hearty thanks to our respectable and lovable CA Shri Ashok Batra ji for sharing with us his findings and opinion today on the topic. हाँ नमस्ते सर. नमस्ते बत्रा जी.
हाँ नमस्ते. सॉरी ना, मेरे यहाँ पावर फेलियर है तो मैंने फोन से लॉग इन किया है.
हाँ ठीक है सर, कोई दिक्कत नहीं. सर मैं फॉर्मल वोट ऑफ थैंक्स दोबारा से पढ़ता हूँ. On behalf of CA Parivar and on behalf of all the participants, I, CA Sunil Garg, extend a very hearty thanks to our respectable and lovable CA Shri Ashok Batra ji for sharing with us his findings and opinion today on the topic. Further, I like to express my sincere thanks to moderator of the program, Central Council member CA Shri Sanjeev Kumar Singhal ji for giving me this opportunity of vote of thanks. And at last, but not least, I want to thank all the participants who have spared their valuable time on the weekend. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Batra ji.
thank you Ashok Batra
Thank you,
sir,
Sanjay
thank
ji.
you Anchal ji.
I'm really sorry,
Anil
मैं
Gupta
अपने
ji,
कंप्यूटर
Sunil
से
sir.
बाहर हो गया क्योंकि मेरे
नहीं
यहाँ
सर,
power
आपने
failure हो
ज्वाइन
गया।
किया सर, ये तो
नहीं, नहीं।
रहेगा पावर फेलियर।
फोन पे मैंने इमीडिएटली कर लिया है।
नहीं सर, बहुत
rather
अच्छा
it is
किया
my
सर।
player, anytime I can come and join you.
Thank
Absolutely
you
no
so
problem.
much sir, thank you so much,
Thank you,
thank
thank
you
you,
Anchal ji, thank you Ashok Batra ji, Anil Gupta ji, Sunil Garg ji, thank you,
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
thank you.